Power flowed through Little Flower's body. The space around him looked twisted. Black and white fire flowed through the destroyed Holy Hall. It started recovering. It was not just the Holy Hall. The whole of the darkness that surrounded Sacred had some miraculous changes thanks to that power. The eternal darkness faded away. The broken buildings started to rebuild. No matter whether or not it was a building that was destroyed or one weathered through time, it was all fixed due to that weird power. Sacred was a ruin, but it now reverted to its former glory like in the good old days. It was unbelievable. Not long later, the darkness that covered Sacred was completely gone. The whole of the big barren systems recovered with a teeming life force and a spellbinding beauty. Many planets returned to life with life forces again. Broken buildings were renewed. Even the Holy Hall and the statues inside the Holy Hall returned to normal. The only thing that was not fixed was Qinxiu's statue. Little Flower, who was wearing the armor, was floating in that spot. The flames were now starting to dim. Little Flower, you made it. Old Cat, who was nearby, opened his eyes wide. He looked at Little Flower, who was wearing the armor. He looked excited as he spoke. Did I really become true God class? Little Flower was happy. He clenched his fist and felt the scary power inside him. No, you are not just true God class, Old Cat said. Your body's top is true God class, but the armor gives you a power that exceeds that. Your holy body, combined with the armor, has given you a power that exceeds what a true God class fighter can achieve. Where is Qinlan? I am going to exact vengeance for what he did to Annie May. Little Flower held his fists tight as he spoke. His eyes looked murderous. He is there. Old Cat stood atop the roof of the Holy Hall. He pulled out a paw and pointed into space. Little Flower looked at Old Cat's paw. He saw the God Palace in space. Is he a God spirit? Which is his God temple? Little Flower's eyes were on fire as he looked at the God temple. He is not a real God spirit, Old Cat said. He is just an obscene traitor of Sacred. Right now, he is inside that God Hall. You need to go to the Geno Hall to see him. The Geno Hall, huh? Little Flower stared at the zenith of all the God palaces. His eyes looked full of confidence. The power in his body was wildly surging. Boom! The presence on Little Flower exploded. It was like a bomb blowing into space. His body kept appearing and disappearing. It was like he teleported into God Palace's radius. He was quickly going to the very top Geno Hall and God Palace. The God Palace had been there for a long time. All of the races were used to the God Palace's existence. Creatures always went to God Palaces to make wishes, while powerful creatures went there to challenge a God spirit. A feather had just entered the area of a God Palace. He was wondering which God temple he should go to make a wish. He suddenly saw a white flame that was not too far away. It was headed to the space near him. It was going to the highest tier of the God Palaces. Who is flying that fast? Does that person have a death wish? The feather moaned. He thought the person who looked like a flame was going to the God temple that was at the highest level to make a wish. After all, something like Han Sen fighting an annihilation class God spirit had only happened once. The feather quickly noticed that something was wrong. The black and white flame went right past the disaster class and annihilation class God temples. It kept flying high up. He watched as it headed for the Geno Hall that was at the highest point of the God Palace pyramid. What is he doing? The feather was shocked. In the universe, many people saw Little Flower's movements. They were all confused as they looked at him. Sky Palace leader was staring at Little Flower too. His face looked weird. He suddenly moved and teleported into a secret room. He pressed a button and pulled out a drawing from a big bell. He took the scroll out of the secret room and looked at Little Flower's body. He quickly glanced at his scroll. A man clad in armor was on the scroll. That armor was in the form of a man's body. The face was not visible, but just the man standing there made it known that his power was extreme. It was like a king was descending to earth. Sky Palace looked at the armor-clad man in the painting. He then looked at Little Flower flying toward the God Palaces. His face looked very solemn. The armor in the painting was pure black, but Little Flower's armor was pure white. Aside from that, the two of them were exactly the same. They looked like a carbon copy of each other. Palace leader. That person. That armor. Sky Palace's first seat quickly went to Sky Palace leader. He was usually calm, but now he could not make a sentence. Before Sky Palace's first seat finished, a woman's body appeared next to Sky Palace leader. Her face looked just as shocked. She said, "That armor, is that the one?" "It is hard to say. It seems like it, but it is a bit different." Sky Palace leader looked at the armor on the scroll. He again glanced at the God Palace Little Flower was headed toward. He looked very conflicted. It seemed as if he was not very sure. In the universe, many old creatures were watching Little Flower with much shock. Even the people in Blood Legion's palace, such as Human King, looked at Little Flower with surprise. The red-clothed woman opened her umbrella. She walked over to Human King with the red umbrella covering her face. No one was able to see her face. "Master, is that Sacred Leader's armor?" the red-clothed woman asked with confusion. "I don't know." Human King shook his head. The red-clothed woman said, "Based on Han Jinji's prediction, there is less than 12 hours to go. If that really is Sacred Leader's armor and Sacred Leader is not dead, maybe there is a chance to break the Geno Hall. None of it seems to be related to Han Senator. It is a shame you gave out so much holy blood. Now, your body is so weak. I am afraid we got tricked by Han Jinji. He obviously wanted to use your holy blood and give it to Han Sen for his own benefit." Human King smiled and said, "Maybe not. Even though I do not know if that armor was the one that Sacred Leader wore, even if it is, the person wearing it cannot be Sacred Leader. It is still unknown as to whether this person can defeat the Geno Hall. Perhaps Han Sen might prove useful a little later. Being tricked by him is fine. As long as we can break the Geno Hall, it is all worth it." "Why are you so sure the person inside the armor is not Sacred Leader?" the red-clothed woman asked with confusion. "Did you forget? My blood pulse is very close to Sacred Leader Qinxiu. If that armor was Sacred Leader Qinxiu, I would have felt it." Human King calmly watched as Little Flower flew to the Geno Hall. He went on to say, "Right now, I do not feel a blood connection to that person there. Perhaps he is slightly related to Qinxiu's blood, but it cannot be Qinxiu." As the eyes of countless shocked old antiques watched, Little Flower arrived at the Geno Hall. He landed on the Geno Hall's plaza. Every race was shocked. Up until now, only Han Sen, by King, and a few others had challenged an Annihilation-class god spirit. Now, someone was going straight to the Geno Hall. People were stunned. Little Flower landed on the Geno Hall plaza. Before he started speaking, a serious and cold god voice sounded in the God Hall. "Do you know how bad the crime of humiliating the God Hall is?" The scary god spirit door of the Geno Hall opened. Many lamp fires were shining from the interior. A body with a lantern fire walking out. One was not able to see the face, but it was still scary. People would have been scared by just seeing it. Little Flower stared at the shadow of the person who had emerged from the Geno Hall and said, "I did not mean to offend the god spirits, but I have come here for Qin Lan. Give me Qin Lan, and I will leave." Han Sen, who was on the cold planet, had his eyes open wide. He looked at Little Flower before the Geno Hall. It had been so many years, but he still recognized him. He was certain that was Little Flower. What is Little Flower doing there? Han Sen was in a rush. He knew how scary the Geno God Hall was. An Annihilation-class god spirit was fine. They were just very powerful. He had fought with one and been able to stand a chance. But that guy who called himself a god was mysterious. He was not just powerful. He was more than that one word. Weird. Han Yufei looked at Little Flower standing in the God Hall Plaza. She frowned and said to herself, "Sacred Leader's armor is still here. Why did it turn into that?" Upon hearing that, Han Sen's body shook while hearing that. "What do you mean? Is Little Flower wearing Qinxiu's armor?" He had a few dire thoughts over what that might mean. Han Yufei was surprised. She looked at Han Sen and asked, "Do you know the person wearing that armor?" "That is my son," Han Sen replied. He quickly asked, "Did you say that armor is Sacred Leader's armor? What is going on?" "Your son?" Han Yufei was shocked. She did not answer Han Sen's question. She looked very untrusting as she asked, "Are you sure the person wearing that armor is your son?" After she asked that, she asked another question. "Is he your biological son?" "I am pretty sure that is my biological son," Han Sen said with confidence. "He was taken by Nine Life Cat when he was small. He was taken to the Holy Palace, but I am sure that is now him. Han Sen was not going to get that wrong. That was because they were related, as well as the feeling of that king's spirit body. Aside from his son, there was no one else in the universe that would have it. That is quite weird. Your genes mostly came from the crystallizers. As for your son, no matter how he got your genes, he could only be a crystallizer. There is no way he should have been able to wear that armor. Unless, Han Yufei's face looked serious. Unless what? Han Sen could not wait to crack open Han Yufei's head to get answers from in there. That is impossible. Han Yufei shook her head, seemingly denying her initial guess. Just tell me what you wanted to say. Han Sen's heart was in a rush and felt like it was on fire. I am not so sure. If I say it, it will be irresponsible of me. My guess is unlikely to be correct. Let's just wait and see. Han Yufei looked at Han Sen and said, It is pointless to rush things. Even if that is really your son, you cannot go there. Before you can control your blue blood, going to the Geno Hall is like making a death wish. As for this guy, who you claim is your son, if he is really wearing Sacred Leader's armor, he might stand a chance. Right now, you just need to stay calm. You need to reach the absolute still mode. At that time, if your son is struggling to defeat the god spirits, you might be able to go and save him. Han Sen understood that, but he had been trying to enter absolute still mode for a month. He had failed the entire time. It made his heart feel rushed and burn. He was not able to quiet it down. I must calm down. Han Yufei is right. I must have enough power to sort out this problem. Han Sen took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. At this time, the body had already walked out of the Geno Hall's door. As the person walked out of the door, the Geno Hall door closed. Moment God. The universe finally saw who emerged from the Geno Hall. Han Sen saw it too, but he was not surprised. He once heard God say that the Geno Hall was guarded by 12 Annihilation-class god spirits. Perhaps this was the time when Moment God guarded Geno Hall. Moment God looked as cold as usual. She stood atop the steps of the Geno Hall door. She looked down from a high place at Little Flower and said, Whatever the reason is for you to have come, a blasphemy against the God Hall can only result in death. After that, Moment God's arms rose slowly. She pointed a finger at Little Flower. It flickered with some scary light. When the finger was outstretched, a weird wave covered the whole of the god's space. It was like time was frozen. Everything was frozen. Moment God's time-stopping power was something everybody had seen in the previous fight. It was still so unbelievable seeing it again. Seeing Moment God's finger movement was already in front of Little Flower. Everybody thought Little Flower could only take the hit and be rendered unable to fight back. Yet, Little Flower was moving even when time stopped. He waved his fist and pointed at Moment God. Pang! A scary white light flame broke Moment God's finger light. It was like an asteroid that was madly going to Moment God. Moment God's face changed. Her body flashed and avoided the punching power. The flaming fist struck the Geno Hall door. It made loud explosion sounds. Although no one was able to hurt the Geno Hall door, the door was shaking non-stop. How is that possible? All the creatures were shocked. Moment God's strength impressed everyone. Now, someone had broken the time-stopping power. One punch had managed to break the finger light. Moment God did not dare fight this face-to-face. That was how scary that power was. Who is this guy? He has very scary power. Since when did the universe have an elite like this? Every race of the universe was in complete shock. They were all talking about it. Some old antiques from ancient times had expressions that kept changing. They looked terrible. I do not want to kill. Don't make me go in there. Give me Qin Lan. Little Flower was stepping toward the Geno Hall's door. His face looked certain and confident. Moment. Light. Moment Goddess did not answer. A mysterious wave flickered on her body. It was like it pushed a river of time and made the river of time flow faster. The time went by like an arrow. One moment was 1,000 or 100 years. Time quickly flew by. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye, but Little Flower did not do anything. It was like time could not leave a mark on him. Moment God's eyes looked very small. She saw Little Flower raise his hands. With 5 fingers open, the river of time flowed back under his hand. Moment God's light power was going backward. Moment God was in the river of time that flowed backward. Her body was affected by time. She started to go from old to young. Holy **T. Who is this guy? He used time power before a time god spirit and suppressed moment God. The whole universe bubbled and boiled in a single moment. The very mighty annihilation class god spirits were suppressed by a creature from the universe in such a ridiculous manner. One found this hard to imagine. To all the old antiques that understood sacred and sacred leader, it was shocking. Their mouths were agape. They screamed out, "This is holy body time power. It is sacred leader Qin Xiu inside that armor." Moment God raised her hand and pointed into space. She was barely able to stop her flow inside the river of time. Her face looked ghastly. When Moment God was going to use Moment's End, the door of the Geno Hall opened again. Someone walked out. "Moment, you cannot beat him. You should hand him over to me. I will finish the sacred matter." Qin Lan had emerged from the Geno Hall with blue flames that strongly blazed. His body looked like a blue crystal. He was very crystallized. He was releasing a weird and powerful presence. Upon hearing him, Moment God frowned. She took her needle back. She flashed back to the Geno Hall's door, but she did not go inside. She decided to watch the fight. "It does not matter if you are the real Qin Xiu," Qin Lan said with an evil laugh. "You will die in my hands today. This world only requires one Qin Lan. We don't need Qin Xiu. We don't need an heir to sacred. This rotten stuff should have been abolished a long time ago. You murdered Auntie May, Old Vulture, and the others." Little Flower immediately recognized Qin Lan. He looked murderous. Qin Lan was shocked. He instantly let out an evil laugh and said, "It seems as if you are not Qin Xiu. You are just an ignorant dumbass used by Qin Xiu. Whatever. It does not matter who you are since you are going to die quickly. Did you kill Auntie May, Old Vulture, and the others?" Little Flower emotionlessly asked again. "So, what if I did? They were just some useless servants getting in the way. I killed them. So what?" Qin Lan looked at him with disdain as he spoke. "Then, pay with your blood." Little Flower was furious. His white fire and flames exploded. His hands were headed for Qin Lan. Time was speeding up. Space was concentrating. Qin Lan's body was pulled toward Little Flower. Little Flower's hands reached out to almost grab his neck. "Holy body time and space power might work on other people, but against me, it is a sorry joke," Qin Lan said while looking at his opponent in disdain. He ignored the flow of time and concentration of space. He tilted his head and evaded Little Flower's hands. He quickly threw a punch at Little Flower's belly. Pang! Little Flower's other fist had a white flame. It went up to connect with Qin Lan's fist. People saw a two-colored shockwave that was white and blue come out from the center point of where their fists collided. The powerful power blasted them both away. "You are not bad. I want to see what Qin Xiu taught you," Qin Lan coldly said. He turned into a blue light as he sprinted toward Little Flower. Little Flower did not look weak. He battled with Qin Lan. Two-colored light that was blue and white kept crashing into each other in front of the Geno Hall. Creatures beneath deified class were not even able to see the light shadows move. Low-level deifieds only saw two lights in the sky hitting each other. Human King sat upon his throne looking at the pair fight with much interest. "Interesting. It looks like they both come from Qin Xiu, but their powers are very different. Qin Lan's body has a combination of sacred blood genes and god spirit genes. The other one is funnier. He has power like a holy body, but it is not blue blood. This is so weird. Can he break the Geno Hall?" the red-clothed woman holding the umbrella said. "If it was just that, I do not think so," Human King coldly said. "Their powers are very close to Qin Xiu back then. If that was something Qin Xiu himself could not do, how could they do it? It is almost time Han Jinji's prediction will be put to the test," the red-clothed woman coldly said. "If he still cannot break the Geno Hall, that means Han Jinji is lying to us again. I will go after him. There is no rush. Let's see what happens first," Human King coldly said. He was holding his jaw as he watched Little Flower and Qin Lan fight. Little Flower's time and space power did not seem to work on Qin Lan, and Qin Lan's power did not seem able to restrict Little Flower's holy body. The two of them were fighting. Time and space were messed up. The sky and ground were falling, but neither of them was able to gain the upper hand. If you want to die this much, I will gladly oblige your request. Qin Lan's body departed the battleground. His blue flame was getting stronger. Both of his eyes were like blue suns. He opened his hands like he was holding the sky. He roared to the sky. With that roar, Qin Lan's body's blue flame was like a volcano erupting. Even the armor on his body melted away. It displayed a body that was strong and godly. Within his body, everything was like a blue crystal and clear. Only his spine was a deep blue color. It was like a dragon's spine knife. It was releasing a scary power throughout his body. It made the power inside Qin Lan's body keep rising. Qin Lan used his hand to rummage through his chest. He pulled out his spine. It was like a weird sword that he held in his hand. Qin Xiu thought too highly of himself. He thought I was a failure, but he would have never dreamt that I was able to generate a sacred blood body and combine with a god spirit's genes. I made this holy spine. It is the strongest gene in the universe. It is the strongest blood. I am the one who should be the leader. Qin Lan's eyes looked at the holy spine with immense pride. He laughed and said, "You are wearing Qin Xiu's armor, so you must be the heir of Qin Xiu. Today, I am going to kill you. I am going to completely squash that which Qin Xiu placed his hope in Diana. That way, he will never rest in peace in hell. He will regret treating me so poorly." After that, Qin Lan raised the holy spine in his hands. In the dark blue weird spine, a strange blue flame was burning. It was like the whole universe was shaking because of that holy spine. The universe was listening to its resonant calling. No matter how strong Qin Xiu was, he was abandoned by the world. No matter how hard he tried, he could not gain the approval of the world. I am different. I have his power, and I have the genes of God's spirits. It makes me the king of the universe. The whole universe will serve me. It was like Qin Lan was being answered. The whole universe was resonating with the holy spine. In space, countless numbers of weird powers went to the holy spine. It made the holy spine and Qin Lan's power all the more powerful. It was going to break the sky. Little Flower's power was very shocking. Compared to Qin Lan's power now, he was suppressed. It was like a commoner versus a giant. There was a big difference. Little Flower looked serious. He did not appear as if he wanted to fall back. His battle spirit was burning. A black and white flame was rising. It fought against that scary suppression. Go to hell. The holy spine in Qin Lan's hands finally moved. It was like a sharp sword thrusting toward Little Flower's heart. Little Flower wanted to raise his hands and block that strike, but he suddenly discovered that his body had been locked down by the universe. He was not able to move. All of that only happened in a moment. It did not allow Little Flower to react. The weird spine was thrust into his chest. Even Sacred Leader's armor could not withstand the force of the holy spine. The holy spine pierced through it. What should have come has finally arrived. In an old building upon a mountain, the fortune-telling old man closed his eyes and sighed. Finally, it is starting. Old Cat, in front of the palace, looked very excited. Qin Lan was looking insane and ugly. He was excited as he held the holy spine and laughed loudly. So what? Even if it is Qin Xiu's armor. So what? Even if you were chosen by Qin Xiu, you are not as good as me. I am the only one who can be better than Qin Xiu. Qin Lan's madness still wasn't finished. His expression suddenly changed. In the next second, his madness and smile turned into ghastly shock. Qin Lan was so scared that he screamed. It looked as if he wanted to get rid of the holy spine in his hands, but he looked electrified. He could not get rid of it. Qin Lan's power was going into the holy spine. The holy spine, which was in Little Flower's chest, seemed to melt. It turned into a blue fluid as it went into Little Flower's body. No. Impossible. Qin Lan's face was severely twisted. He felt wronged, hopeless, scared, helpless, angry, and hateful. No matter what he thought, he could not get rid of the holy spine. His body's life force kept heading for the holy spine. He was rapidly growing old. His very handsome and young face was suddenly turning into the face of a middle-aged man. Even his hair was turning white. Moment God's face changed. She gathered up time God power and tried to strike Han Little Flower. Unfortunately, the time god power was still quite a way away from Han Little Flower and Qinlan. It was like it was falling into endless space. It could not get close to them. All the creatures in the universe watched as Qinlan started to age. The man who was once an invincible elite had become an old man with white hair and on his deathbed. His life force was extremely weak. It was like it was hardly there at all. Pang! Qinlan finally got rid of the holy spine. He fell to the floor, but he was so old that he could not even get up anymore. He used his tired, old eyes to look at Han Little Flower. The holy spine had completely melted and become fluid in Little Flower's body. The armor's broken spot was already fully healed. Aside from the two black and white lights, Little Flower had blue power flowing through him. It quickly combined with his body. The armor also looked as if it had been dyed blue. The black armor started to show some weird blue symbols. Boom! A pair of blue wings opened up behind his back. They went all the way into the nothingness. It was like they connected with the very universe. Little Flower's eyes now looked blue. Moments before, they had looked murderous. Now, they appeared rather calm. He was even smiling. You are. Cough, cough. The dying Qinlan saw his face. His entire body started to shiver and shake. It was like he had discovered something extremely scary. His eyes opened as far as they could go. He could not keep talking. You did a great job. Your work is done here. You did fine. Little Flower looked at Qinlan kindly. It was like some elder who was complimenting a young man. Impossible. Impossible. That is impossible. Qinlan seemed to understand something. All the emotions inside him drove him insane. He tried his best to lift his old body. He wanted to jump at Little Flower, but he fell to the ground after taking only 2 steps. He angrily looked at Little Flower. At the same time, his face was drenched with a distinct lack of hope. His hands tried to grab Little Flower, but he ran out of power. His hands just slumped. His eyes were still opened wide. He was not able to close them. My poor child, you do not have to do this. Little Flower sighed. He did not look at Qinlan. He looked at the Geno Hall ahead of him. In Blood Legion's palace, Human King got up from his throne. He looked weird as he said, Qin Xiu really didn't die. That Qinlan was unfortunate. He thought he had discarded Qin Xiu's control a long time ago and destroyed Sacred. He had no idea that was what Qin Xiu wanted all along. If he had not entered the Geno Hall and combined his genes with a god spirit to create the Holy Spine, Qin Xiu would not have finished evolving. Now, he is being repelled by the universe. Who would have thought Sacred's biggest traitor was the key to Qin Xiu's rebirth? Qin Xiu used a body to be reborn. He has a powerful body and is not repelled by the universe. He is like those god spirits. He has the power of the universe. Very good, Qin Xiu. Very powerful conspiracy. God. Qin Xiu came back. Little Flower looked at the Geno Hall. He smiled and walked toward it. Moment God wished to attack, but there was suddenly a loud booming noise. It was followed by the Geno Hall's door opening. A hand touched her shoulder. She was unable to go out. God. Mr. Moment God turned and looked at the body that was touching her shoulder. She immediately bowed. Go back. Go back to your God temple. God patted Moment Goddess's shoulder and warmly smiled. Moment God politely bowed and ran back to her Moment God temple. The entire universe could see the body that had come out of the Geno Hall was the shape of a lady, but it did not have any power. It was unknown why Moment God was being so nice to her. Lone Bamboo saw the lady's face. When he did, he was so shocked that he screamed, "Wanner!" Lone Bamboo drew his sword. He was going into the sky. There was a sudden movement in space. A powerful Bysema trapped the area. Lone Bamboo tried slashing the Bysema. Since there were light shadows, the strike was unable to break the barrier. Teacher, let me out. I need to bring Wanner back. Lone Bamboo looked confident as he spoke. Sky Palace leader's voice echoed through the Bysema. Everything will turn into nothing in the end. If you can understand the true meaning of the textless book, you can make that Bysema fall. Wanner. Lone Bamboo was as angry as a wild flame. He kept striking the Bysema, but the Bysema looked as if it could absorb any power thrown at it. Lone Bamboo's strong sword was unable to break the Bisema at all. In front of the Geno Hall, Qin Xiu calmly looked at God. In his eyes, the appearance and body were not important. He could see that it was God. God, the reason I lost before was because of this world restraining me, Qin Xiu coldly said. Now, my body has earned the approval of this world. You and I are on the same level now. It is time to bring this to an end. God stood before the Geno Hall. He calmly looked at Qin Xiu and said, You have already lost. Oh? Then, you must tell me where and how I lost. Qin Xiu looked at God with interest. God smiled and said, I still remember that proud sacred leader Qin Xiu once saying he would become the leader of the world even if he had to go against the whole world. Now, you have given in to the world. You might be able to beat me, but you have already lost. Qin Xiu seriously said, Yes, I have already lost. I wanted to use the origin of genes to make genes that were greater than the genes of the gods. That way, I could be on top of the world. In the end, though, I lost. That was almost impossible. So, I took a step back. I used my body to combine with God genes. I am half human and half God. I can keep my power and be accepted by the world. Even as he spoke, Qin Xiu's eyes had yet to move. He still looked confident as he said, None of that matters anymore. Even if I were to use all the bad methods of the world, and even though I am hated by all creatures, it is just this body that is lost. All of that does not matter as long as I can fulfill my wish. Even if I turn to dust, it will have been worth it. God asked, Would you let others suffer for your own benefit? Is that truly worth it? I don't mind having 1,000 crimes on me because my mind is stalwart. Qin Xiu's heart was as strong as steel. His mind would not be changed. He walked toward the Geno Hall. With each footstep, it was like the whole sky and the world was suppressing the god palaces. In the god palaces that never broke, countless cracks were developing. The god temples in the bottom cracked first. Some of the smaller temples fell away from the god palace collective. The god palaces are starting to fall. This really is sacred leader Qin Xiu. Human King looked at the sky with much excitement. Han Jinji's prophecy came true, the red-clothed woman said. Her voice trembled with sheer excitement. Seeing Qin Xiu walk to the Geno Hall, the god palaces beneath his feet kept cracking and breaking. He looked like a big dragon cracking the god palaces. The god palaces kept breaking. It was like the end of the world. God stood in front of the Geno Hall. He did not do anything. His body was glowing with serious holy light as he fought against Qin Xiu's power. God's power could not stop Qin Xiu's approach. He only made his approach slower. Qin Xiu kept walking as he said, In this world, there are not many people I admire. You are one of them, but it is a shame you are bound by rules. What you can accomplish is limited. I exist beyond those rules now. I am not bound. I can do anything. We can tell who will win. Even you will lose today. The god palaces fell, but God was still calm as he said, I do not think so. You cannot make something out of nothing. There must be rules, and rules breed possibilities. If everything was nothing, then nothing would exist. There would not be you and I. Things were always meant to be, and it cannot be forced. The world is not fair. What do we need it for? If this world really required rules, then it should be me who decides them. Qin Xiu's eyes possessed godlight. The black and white flames grew brighter. The blue pattern on the armor was glowing with a blue light. It was like they were coming alive. Boom, boom, boom. While Qin Xiu was suppressing the god palaces, more and more cracks developed. Although God tried his best to protect the Geno Hall, his power did not really do much to affect Qin Xiu. Under Qin Xiu's suppression, his mouth was bleeding. Qin Xiu kept walking forward as he said, Your god body is limited by rules. You cannot fight me. You can only use your body to descend, but your body is too weak. Still, you must have selected this girl for a reason. Why don't you tell me what it is? Her name is Warner, God said. Qin Xiu's body froze when he heard that name. He stopped walking. His eyes looked complicated for a brief moment and became clear again. He looked at God and said, This Warner is not the same Warner I used to have. If you think you can use her to stop me, I must inform you that you are incorrect. After that, Qin Xiu walked forward again. He and God's powers were in constant collision. It made the God palaces fall like mad. Many God temples kept splitting away and flying into space. The entire construct of the God palaces was falling apart. Most of the God temples below were all scattered. No, I just wanted to tell you that you are not the only one in this world with a family, God said. So what? Even if the world has countless creatures, to me, there is only one person. Qin Shio's determination could not be faltered. He continued slowly walking toward the God palaces. The indestructible Geno Hall was shaking. Inside the God Palace, every race's race lantern was shining extremely bright. They helped God fight against Qin Shio. Boom, boom, boom. The sky and ground were changing a lot. One Annihilation-class God temple fell away from the God Palaces. It drifted into the void of space. A sky full of races was incredibly shocked. When the God Palaces were falling, everywhere in the universe suffered a disaster. There were floods all over, and volcanoes erupting. In space, magnetic storms were raging. Streams were messed up everywhere. It was like the end of the world. On the cold planet, Han Sen's eyes were burning with fire. His body kept shaking. He knew Little Flower was inside the armor, but Qin Shio's power was controlling it. It was like water being possessed by God. It was still Little Flower, but another power had taken control of him. If he was able to repel the power, he could save Little Flower. But Han Sen was still unable to learn how to be absolutely still. He had not yet learned to control the blue blood power. I cannot wait any longer. Little Flower is suppressed now, but Qin Shio's power will only become stronger. Little Flower might be defeated on the inside. Han Sen knew he was running out of time. He had to take a risk. He cast Blood Pulse Sutra and activated the blue blood power inside him. Han Jinji gave Han Sen Geno Fluid. It could make the blue blood calm down. Now, Han Sen had started his Blood Pulse Sutra. It made his blue blood power explode. Almost at the exact same time, Han Sen's 9-life cat tattoo revealed itself again. What are you doing? Han Yufei asked with a frown. Do not be reckless. Your power is not yet sufficient enough to harness the blue blood. Even if you force the blue blood power, do you really think you can defeat someone who has blue blood as a birthright?
Han Sen knew Han Yufei was right.
It did not matter if it was him or Human King, but the blue blood power originated from Qin Shio. Using blue blood power before Qin Shio was like waving a knife before Guan Yu. Han Sen had no other choice. He could not watch Little Flower be defeated. That was his son. It was his family, and his family was very important. Now, it was not a mathematical question. There was no correct answer. There were some things that just had to be done, and they had to be done no matter what. When Blood Pulse Sutra was cast, the blue blood genes and 9-life cat tattoo power exploded. It made the Blood Pulse Sutra quickly spin. It was on the brink of losing control. At this time, Han Sen's presence suddenly changed. All his blood air went in reverse. It was going in the opposite direction of Blood Pulse Sutra. This was the Geno art that was Blood Pulse Sutra in reverse. It was called the Xian Yellow Sutra. Han Sen did not dare use Blood Pulse Sutra because he did not know what might happen if he used it. After all, his body was controlled by the blue blood and 9-life cat power. The status of his body was too precarious. If the blood was reversed and made the three powers collide, it might mess up his body. Han Sen did not care about that at this moment. Pure blue blood power could not defeat Qin Shio. He could not save Little Flower. As long as there was hope, Han Sen had to try. When the blood air reversed, the blue blood power went in reverse too. When it went in reverse, that weird blue color started to look light. It was turning into a red color. The 9-life cat tattoo was becoming brighter and brighter. It was like it was being buffed by a god power. It turned into a god light that covered Han Sen's body. How could this happen? Does this mean 9-life cat power is the power to reverse the Blood Pulse Sutra? Han Sen felt the 9-life cat tattoo burn on his back. His power was getting stronger. The blue blood had almost completely turned into red blood. Suddenly, a shadow stepped across the heavy snow and quickly walked next to Han Sen. Han Sen saw the shadow. His eyes looked cold in response. He stared at the shadow and asked, "Do you dare show yourself in front of me?" 9-life cat? Han Yufei looked shocked too. She had heard 9-life cat was still alive, but seeing him now was still a surprise. After all, she had watched 9-life cat die. She was not able to bring people back to life. She had only worked as a researcher to inspect 9-life cat. She wanted to know what method Qin Xiu used to revive 9-life cat. I am so sorry for what I did to the Han family, and I am so sorry about Little Flower. If you want to kill me, you are free to do it now. Old Cat walked toward Han Sen slowly. He looked very calm. Do you think I wouldn't dare? Han Sen clenched his fists. He threw a punch toward Old Cat, who was less than 9 feet away. Pang! The punch was not buffed with Geno arts, but the strength of Han Sen's body made the punch twist Old Cat's face. The cat flew away and hit an icy mountain. The icy mountain collapsed. Old Cat quickly scrambled out from the broken ice. He was bleeding from his mouth, yet his face was still very calm. He walked back to Han Sen and said, "Everyone knows I am one of the 4 holy beasts of sacred." They did not know that the 4 holy beasts were just test subjects. At the end of the day, I was the one that suffered the most. I died, but Qin Xiu brought me back from hell. I have been unable to escape the sad fate of being controlled by him. If things are like that, why do you insist on hurting Little Flower? Han Sen looked at the cat coldly. His fists were still clenched. He was on the brink of striking once again. Old Cat shook his head. Even if I had not selected Little Flower, some other human would have been chosen. That person would have had to have been from the Han family. I chose Little Flower, but I left the Han family a hope. That is what I wanted. What do you mean? Han Sen asked with a frown. Other people don't know it, but I do. Little Flower's blood comes from you. Although I know his blood is not perfect, your other child, Linger, has perfect blood. Do you know why I did not take Linger and only took Little Flower? Old Cat got about 30 feet away from Han Sen and stopped. That is because Linger was born too late, Han Sen coldly said with a grunt. You cannot swap people because Qin Xiu could not afford to wait that long. Old Cat shook his head. If Qin Xiu saw Linger, I am afraid he would be willing to wait 10 million years. But it has only been a few years. After pausing, Old Cat went on to say, Little Flower's gene blood is good, but it is not perfect. Qin Xiu used his body to be reborn. That means he has flaws. If he has flaws, then we have a chance. This is our final chance. Han Sen did not believe a word that came out of Old Cat's mouth. He coldly said, if you did not give Little Flower to him, he would not have been reborn in the first place. That is because you don't know Qin Xiu, Old Cat said. If he wants something done, he'll have a number of backup plans. Even if I did not bring him Little Flower, he would have found a way to get what he wanted. If we had to wait for him to get a perfect body, we might as well have given him a body that was close to perfect. It was something that seemed perfect, and he fell for it. Did you think I would believe you? Han Sen coldly looked at Old Cat. I do not need you to believe me, Old Cat said with a laugh. You just need to follow your own will to do it. My will is to kill you and Qin Xiu, Han Sen said as he stared at Old Cat. Old Cat smiled even more. You can achieve the second wish, but the first wish is something I can do for you. After that, Old Cat's body possessed a red flame. When one looked closer, it was not fire. It was a life force leaving his body. Han Sen and Han Yufei were shocked. They did not know what he wanted to do. Pulling his life force away like that was self-harm. It was more painful than being skinned alive. Old Cat's body was excreting a life force. It was like it was being pulled away with a magnet. It was going toward Han Sen's body. Quickly, it went into the reverse blood pulse sutra. It became a part of the Shin Yellow Sutra. It made Han Sen's body more powerful. Why are you doing this? Han Sen looked at the life force, which was almost completely out of the animal. He noticed Old Cat's body was looking to be in very poor shape. His face started to look weird. Old Cat's face was incredibly calm. He said, I died because of the Holy Spirit tests. Qin Xiu used his gene blood to revive me. Through that, I became his puppet. All these years, I have been fighting the blue blood, but I have never been able to shed control of the blue blood. Although I discovered the reverse blue blood skill, I was still never able to completely control it. Then, I understood I had died a long time ago. My soul was broken. Qin Xiu was fixing my soul. He put his soul in me. No matter what, I was never able to escape his control. but I invented a blue blood reversal skill. It can restrict his blue blood. I was going to give it to Linger because only Linger could have the perfect body required. That way, she could beat Qin Xiu. After saying all this, Old Cat started to look strange. To be honest, you and Human King are the same. You captured my attention a long time ago. In the end, I did not choose you because I did not think you guys were perfect enough. You all had flaws and could not be the one who could defeat Qin Xiu. The fire in Old Cat's blood was going dim. His life force was going to be gone very soon. Old Cat's face looked very dim. I am so sorry, little flower. He treated me like family, but I pushed him to hell. Dying will not be enough to redeem my sins, but I will still give my life to you. Use my life. Beat Qin Xiu and save little flower. I know it will be difficult, but I have faith you will be able to do this. After that, Old Cat raised his hand and looked at Qin Xiu and little flower. His expression looked complicated. He looked guilty, and he looked as if he was longing for something. He also looked determined. Little flower will believe you have what it takes too, Old Cat said. The blood light started to shine. It was like the last effort of a waning sun. The blood flames from his body all went into Han Sen. The blood fire was like it was rewinding. It went dim after becoming so bright. It turned to ash. When the wind blew, it was gone. Han Sen was conflicted. He did not know what he was feeling. He hated Old Cat, who had fractured his family and made Little Flower become Qin Xiu's new host. Now, Han Sen could not really harbor any more animosity toward him. Although Old Cat did not say it, Han Sen knew what he meant. Old Cat was going to wait until Linger grew up and allow Linger to get his blood for beating the imperfect Qin Xiu. If they waited, Little Flower would have had no chance of being saved. Thus, Old Cat gave up his own life. He ultimately selected Han Sen, the one he did not have much hope in Indiana. It was not because Han Sen's power touched him. It was because Old Cat did not want to see Little Flower be defeated. He changed his plans. He used his life. He used his hope. He used his hatred and love for Han Sen, the one he did not want to pick. Even without your life, I can still save Little Flower. Why don't you just rest in peace? Han Sen looked at the sky. The 9-life cat light was glowing on his back. His body had red blood boiling and roaring. An incredible power gathered inside him. The 9-life cat tattoo was lively. The light broke away and became dots of light that entered Han Sen's body. The blood tattoo dimmed. It melted into the stream of the Xian Yellow Sutra. The god palaces were falling. Many god temples were breaking. The whole universe was in chaos. All the races were suffering a disaster. No one in the universe could find a clear patch of soil. Boom. The god temples that had yet to fall away from the god palaces were glowing. It looked like an erupting volcano. It was like god spirits were coming out from the god temples. At this time, God said, all the god spirits should maintain their position. They cannot leave. The god palaces can break, but the base of the universe cannot. I am willing to live and die with you. Among the many crying sounds, a godly voice called out from various god temples. It shocked the sky, which was full of everything falling apart. God smiled, but then his body suddenly turned soft. The shadow of a man's holy body appeared. He was holding a passed-out Warner. The responsibility is in front of me. Other things do not matter. While God was talking, his holy light glowed. His light shone on the entirety of the god palaces, which were cracking. All of the god temples were separated from the Geno Hall. They were scattering into the universe. The god palaces only had the Geno Hall left. In the past, my boy was out there, and you could defeat me, Qin Xiu said with a sigh. Now, my body is in here, so you cannot do a thing. You are very sad. Are these the rules you seek to protect? God laughed. He pushed his hand. Warner was wrapped up by holy light. She flew away from the Geno Hall, heading toward Sky Palace. After all this, God looked at Qin Xiu and said, not bad. This is the rule I will keep. I will keep protecting it. Sorry, but I must break your rules. Qin Xiu looked serious. He stood in front of God. The two of them were 3 feet away from each other. They stared at each other. A scary power kept colliding between them. Boom, boom, boom. The whole of the Geno Hall shook like mad. It moved the spot they were at, which started to fall. Suddenly, The whole universe's base had space cracks and turbulence. Disasters were happening everywhere like it was the end of the world. The Geno Hall is going to fall, Human King said with excitement. Most creatures around the universe were crying. Many creatures were affected by ongoing disasters. They wanted to survive amidst the carnage, but most were consumed by it. Mountains were breaking. Rivers were flooding. The sun and the moon were reversed. It was like the world was going to break. Damn it! The Geno Hall has such a profound connection with the universe. We cannot allow him to break the Geno Hall. Sky Palace leader broke space. He wanted to go to the Geno Hall, but he had just gone before when he tried throwing a punch at Qin Xiu. The Geno Hall glowed with a godlight. A strange power blasted Sky Palace leader away. The Geno Hall's power was protecting it from someone who wanted to see it destroyed. Many elites had the same idea as Sky Palace leader, but they were stopped. Their entry to the Geno Hall was forbidden. No one was able to go in. They were stopped by the Geno Hall's power. Their attacks affected the Geno Hall, which made it fall faster. When all of those scary elites were at a loss with what to do, a flame that looked like blood burst out. It was not repelled by the Geno Halls by Sema. It went straight into the Geno Hall's proximity. It landed on the Geno Hall Plaza. Han Sen. Everybody knew that it was Han Sen in front of the Geno Hall. Han Sen was standing near it. He looked at Qin Xiu but did not do anything. Qin Xiu saw Han Sen and coldly said, "This is not a place you should be." Han Sen heard his words. He knew that back in the Holy Garden, Qin Xiu's soul was not so simple. Qin Xiu recognized him. All he did was interact with Qin Xiu's soul. "I do not want to be here, but you have done something that made me come," Han Sen said while looking at Qin Xiu. "To see you." "What thing?" Qin Xiu kept suppressing God, but he still had the strength to talk to Han Senator. His face did not change. It looked like he still had a whole heap of power. "Leave that body," Han Sen said. "He does not belong to you." Qin Xiu looked at Han Sen and asked, "Is this body related to you?" "It is my son," Han Sen said. It was not just Qin Xiu that was shocked by this revelation. All the elites outside the Geno Hall heard what was spoken and reacted similarly. No one would have been able to guess Qin Xiu's reborn body was Han Sen's son. Everyone's expressions changed. Qin Xiu laughed. "Good old cat. Good plan. It is no wonder he gave me this body. That explains why. If it was you, I would have to be wary." Sky Palace leader and the very high leader looked at each other. They could tell the other was shocked. Qin Xiu was not scared of facing god spirits that were above reboot-class god spirits. Now, he was saying something like this, and these were not insane words. They still did not understand why Qin Xiu was scared of Han Senator. If it was because Han Sen had blue blood power and managed to defeat Moment God, then it made no sense. Blue blood power came from Qin Xiu. If Han Sen received blue blood power from someone and that made him afraid, no one would have believed it. Qin Xiu said, "Although I am sorry, I cannot give you this body. If you want to use Wanner to threaten me, you are wrong." "Is that one person you said not Wanner?" Han Sen wanted to use Wanner to swap for Little Flower, but he did not expect Qin Xiu to close down that prospect already. "You are right. I can do anything for Wanner. I also know that if I cannot break the Geno Hall, then it would be pointless even if Wanner lived." Qin Xiu laughed and said, "Plus, I know that you are not a person who is selfish and would be so willing to do something so cruel to an innocent girl. Maybe I am like you and am willing to commit any crime for the safety of one person," Han Sen coldly replied. Qin Xiu smiled even harder. "In that case, you won't hurt Wanner because she is my life. Without her life, I cannot live. If I cannot live, this body will die. So, that leaves you and me with the need to fight." Han Sen knew there was no point in talking any further. Swapping Little Flower for Wanner wasn't going to be possible. "No one can stop me from destroying the Geno Hall, and that includes you," Qin Xiu said. "As a reward for taking care of Wanner, I will not kill you." "I will," Han Sen coldly said. Qin Xiu coldly laughed. He said, "I am not looking down on you, as your body has my blood coursing through its veins. You are like my clone. Do you think a clone can be better than the real stuff? We will just have to find out, won't we?" Han Sen cast Bloodpool Sutra. His entire body glowed with a blue light. "Are you using my power to fight me?" You are too naive. Qin Xiu had a cold expression, blue symbols flickering across his armor. He was not fighting Han Senator, he still kept God suppressed. It was like Han Sen was not worth his attention. The blue light in Han Sen grew stronger. He approached Qin Xiu. Every step he took became stronger. He was like a battle god prepared to fight the sky. Qin Xiu asked, "Can you practice my blue blood gene to such a high level? That is very shocking. Compared to me back then, it isn't too bad. But now, I am not the old me. Plus, that power belongs to me. No one can use my powers to hurt me." Han Sen did not say anything. He threw a punch at Qin Xiu. A scary blue light ripped the rules and everything around. A power that could destroy the world was headed straight for Qin Xiu. Blue blood power did not fit into the rules of the universe, and this power dealt a lot of damage to the rules of the universe. Han Sen's punch was able to break a big system. An elite like Moment God would have been killed with one hit. Faced with that scary power, Qin Xiu did not bother dodging. He also did not bother fighting back. He allowed the scary blue light to fall upon his back. It was like a spring sun thawing the snow. As the scary blue light hit Qin Xiu's body, it did nothing. It melted into the armor. The blue symbols absorbed it and grew brighter. Qin Xiu's body was only made stronger. "I said, my power cannot hurt me," Qin Xiu coldly said. Outside the Geno Hall, the expressions of many elites changed. Qin Xiu was scarier than even their wildest nightmares could have depicted. Although they believed Han Sen could not defeat Qin Xiu, they did not expect him to lose so badly. He had been unable to harm Qin Xiu. He had only managed to lend him power. Really? Han Sen's face did not change. He gathered up power and threw a punch at Qin Xiu. This time, the light of his fists became red. It was different from the blue. It was the opposite. Qin Xiu frowned. He looked shocked. He felt a bit confused, but he did not want to give up on breaking the Geno Hall. He raised his fist and threw a punch at Han Sen's incoming strike. Blue and white, the two colors of weird power, struck Han Sen's blood power. The blood color dyed the blue, and white colors red. In the blink of an eye, Qin Xiu's armor turned red. How could this happen? Did you reverse the blue blood power? Qin Xiu's eyes were wide open. His body was devolving, and his power was fading. God, who was previously suppressed, was now able to fight back. His godlight was glowing. He bounced Qin Xiu, who was breaking the Geno Hall, away. Pang! Qin Xiu's body broke a pillar. His body devolved. The blue patterns on his armor dimmed. The blue light in his eyes also dimmed. Qin Xiu's god spirit level and universe level were quickly devolving. Even though he had combined with the Holy Spine and an Annihilation class god spirit, his level was suddenly lowered to something comparative to a disaster class god spirit. He was also getting worse. Little Flower's universe level was falling too. True God, Butterfly, Larva, it kept going down. Sky Palace leader and the other elites were both shocked and happy. Han Sen had the name Han Godfather, but no one would have believed he had the power to defeat Qin Xiu. Seeing Qin Xiu's body's god spirit level drop from disaster class, the Geno Hall no longer protected his body. He stopped hesitating. Han Sen used the strongest power possible to try and kill Qin Xiu and remove the universe's biggest threat. All kinds of power that could destroy the sky and ground rained down. It was all going to kill Qin Xiu. Suddenly, there was the flash of a shadow. Qin Xiu disappeared. The space was broken by a scary power. It caved in and became a black hole. Very High Leader shouted, "Han Sen, what are you doing? If you don't kill him now, what if he..." Everyone saw Han Sen use one hand to grab Qin Xiu as he appeared on the other side of space. They quickly noticed something. Qin Xiu had taken over the body of Han Sen's son. Han Sen would not watch his son be killed. Han Sen, Qin Xiu is a demon that wants to destroy the universe, Very High Leader said. We cannot grant him a chance. Kill him now, or there will be consequences. Han Sen coldly responded, I don't care what Qin Xiu thinks, but my son cannot be allowed to die. Seeing Qin Xiu's body devolving, Han Sen grabbed him. Qin Xiu, leave my son's body. I don't care about anything more than that. I don't even want to take your life. The blue light in Qin Xiu's eyes was very cold. He could not move because Han Sen restricted him, but he laughed and said, Han Sen, I never imagined you would be able to reverse the blue blood gene power. That is a genius move. I never tried it before, so that surprises me. Stop talking crap. Leave my son's body. Han Sen grabbed Qin Xiu and kept using the Xian Yellow Sutra power on him. He continued to suppress Qin Xiu's body and ensure he continued to devolve. Qin Xiu laughed like a madman. It was like he had not heard what Han Sen had told him. He spoke to himself and said, I should have guessed this. That is very good. I am so happy. Han Sen wanted to say something, but a grand power suddenly came out of Qin Xiu's body. In his eyes, which were once dim blue, there was a light that was red. The blue patterns on the armor turned red. The light was scarier than it was when it was blue. It was like his whole body was wrapped in a red flame. The light on the back of the wings had even turned red. It turned the whole of space red. The universe was reflecting the color red. Han Sen's power struck Qin Xiu's power. It was blasted away. Their faces looked dim. Very High Leader and the others were incredibly shocked. Anyone was able to tell that Han Sen had learned the power that could make God spirits drop their level. In the past, Qin Xiu was invincible. Now, he had Han Sen's power. Wouldn't that make people hopeless? Seeing Qin Xiu's power explode, his God spirit and body levels had recovered. Very High Leader immediately roared. He pushed his very high sense to the max. His entire body combined with the universe's rule power. He became sheer pressure focused on Qin Xiu. At the same time, he shouted, before he recovers, we must kill him. Many elites of the universe did not hesitate. They all used their strongest powers to attack Qin Xiu. Boom! Qin Xiu looked at the sky and roared. A shockwave of red blasted out of him. It broke the powers wielded by Very High Leader and the other scary elites. It also blasted their bodies away. The most shocking thing was that Very High Leader noticed their bodies were devolving. They themselves were dropping to butterfly class and continued to devolve. Aside from Han Sen, no one else escaped that power. It is all over, a Very High Elder said. His face was pale. He looked utterly hopeless. It was not just him. The elites of the entire universe knew it was over. Qin Xiu had learned Han Sen's power, and he was doing even better with it. Thank you, Han Sen, Qin Xiu said. Without you, I would have never thought the blue blood's gene power could be used this way. His entire body blazed with a blue flame as he approached the Geno Hall. I did not create this, Han Sen said as he stared at Qin Xiu. I know, Qin Xiu said with a nod. If I have guessed correctly, this was done by Old Cat. But you are the one who performed it. That is your achievement. Get out of my way, Qin Xiu said. You cannot stop me. With your power, I will break the Geno Hall and have its destruction benefit you. I can make you become the leader of the world. I can make you bigger than God. Leave Little Flower's body, Han Sen seriously said. I don't care what else you do. If you insist on trying to stop me, do not blame me for forgetting your kindness of taking care of Warner, Qin Xiu said. His body exploded with a blood flame. He teleported to Han Sen and tried to grab him by the chest. Han Sen generated the power of the Xian Yellow Sutra again. He threw a punch at Qin Xiu. Two blood powers combined. Han Sen noticed his Xian Yellow Sutra power was going into Qin Xiu. It gave Qin Xiu more power. Qin Xiu grabbed Han Sen's fist and calmly said, You are strong. I will give you that, but your power originates from me. No matter how hard you try, you cannot be greater than me. In this universe, aside from me, no one can really use this power. Do you know why? Why? Han Sen wanted to shake Qin Xiu's hand away, but he noticed his body's power was not listening to him. It was like he had been sucked in by a very strong magnet. He kept going toward Qin Xiu. Because I do not belong to this world, Qin Xiu said. My power does not belong to this world. And you belong to this world. Even though your body has my gene blood, you do not have the power to control the world. Old Cat spent so much effort and even died placing his faith in you. But he will never understand his plans were doomed to failure. He was wrong from the very start. He used his other hand to grab Han Sen's forehead through space. Han Sen felt his sea of soul shake. Destiny's tower lost all control. It flew out of the sea of soul and went into Qin Xiu's hands. Catcha! Destiny's tower broke. The stuff inside fell out, including water. Qin Xiu used one hand to hold her body. Han Sen, although I do not want to kill you, for water, whoever stops me must die. If you have any last words, you should say them now. For water's sake, if it does not get in my way, I will let you finish it. Qin Xiu was looking at water as he spoke. I want you to die. The power in Han Sen's body madly exploded. He stopped trying to get away from Qin Xiu. He used his power to push Qin Xiu. That is a shame, Qin Xiu said with a sigh. He held Han Sen's fist. His hand suddenly used power to punch Han Sen in the chest. It made Han Sen's body fly away. Pang! Han Sen's body was like an asteroid traveling through space. It struck a planet and then another planet. In the end, he hit a final planet. He made no more sound. It was unknown how many systems he had traveled. After Han Sen disappeared, Wanner's body was glowing with a golden light. She turned into golden hair lady mode and woke up from her slumber. Big brother. After her eyes opened, Wanner saw Qin Xiu. Although she was still in golden hair mode, she was not raging. Her voice sounded so sweet. Wanner, hang on a bit longer. Big brother will take you back. Qin Xiu stroked Wanner's golden hair. His eyes looked like they were drunk. Yes, Wanner said with a nod. She closed her eyes and leaned against Qin Xiu's chest. God, today no one will be able to stop me. Give it up. Qin Xiu was holding Wanner. He raised his head to peer upon the Geno Hall. His body glowed with a red flame. He crushed the very light of the Geno Hall and almost extinguished it entirely. The Geno Hall, which had never fallen, was being suppressed by that scary power. The walls cracked like dragonflies. The whole of the Geno Hall was starting to crumble apart. When the Geno Hall fell, the disasters plaguing the entire universe were worse. It was not just affecting normal creatures either. Even king-class elites were significantly affected. The entire world was in bad shape. It was like the universe was going to experience a big bang. God stood before the Geno Hall, but he was unable to withstand the suppression of the blood power. The holy light on his body was becoming weaker. The race lanterns of the Geno Hall were becoming dimmer. It was like they would be put out any second. The spirits were charcoal. Everything was dying. The faces of Sky Palace leader and all the other elites looked like dust. Although they wanted to fight, they could not reclaim the battle. They could barely protect themselves. In the shine of the red flame, their bodies almost fell out of deified class. Qin Xiu spoke to the still-suffering god. God, give up. If you are willing to abandon the Geno Hall, possess someone, and descend into the universe, you might still live. This place is my life, God coldly said. If my life is not here, then what is the point of living? You are right. I think so too. If your life blocks my life, then I will have to just take your life. Qin Xiu stepped forward. A sky full of blood light was marching alongside him. It broke the roof of the Geno Hall. Stone pillars cracked. Many race lanterns were almost put out inside that hall. The Geno Hall was unstable. It was as if it was going to break any second. God's body's holy light was crushed. It was almost put out. Even the bodies of the god spirits were dim and lifeless. They kept appearing and disappearing. It was like they were preparing to go. Boom. Many light pillars arose from space. It was the god palaces splitting up. They landed on all kinds of god temples. Many god lights arose from the god temples. They went through space and melted into the Geno Hall. It made the Geno Hall look very bright. God's god spirit body was being shined on by many god spirits. He looked bright again. If you guys want to die that much, then you can all die together. Qin Xiu was holding Wanner. He was like a demon descending on the Geno Hall. He walked there slowly. Although it had the support of a sky full of god spirits' god power, the Geno Hall was still unable to withstand the pressure exerted by Qin Xiu. The God Hall kept breaking. The more the God Hall kept breaking, the more disasters that were incurred across the universe. The entire universe was in turmoil. Countless creatures died in the disasters. In the universe, the ground of an old, unimportant planet was breaking. A volcano was erupting. It swallowed many forests. Floodwaters rushed across the ground. Amidst that chaos, there was a totally quiet mountain. All those disasters did not affect that small mountain. There was a broken house on the small mountain's peak. Behind the house, there was a garden with a white cloth flag. The flag said, "Count all the destinies." The white cloth had been dyed red. Between the black and white, the words, "Count all the destinies," stood out. A man's body was perched on the top of the flagpole. It had been pierced through the tip of the pole. He was lying there with his limbs spread out. He was looking into space while the pole pierced through him. His eyes looked faithless. Fresh blood left his body. It dripped onto the cloth flag and quickly dyed it red. The person who flew out was Han Sen, who had been punched by Qin Xiu. It was unknown if this was just a coincidence, but he had landed near that old house. The flagpole in the backyard had pierced through his body. Han Jinji was standing in the back garden, talking to Han Sen, while he looked at the cloth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The children of other people can enjoy their lives. It is such a shame you were born to be a part of the Han family. You were born to the Han family. If you were just a commoner, you could live safely. But you did not become a commoner. You had to be famous. This is fate. It was meant to be. There is a lot of suffering you must endure, and you deserve it all. I am useless. I cannot save your life, and I cannot change fate. All I can do is try to make changes for you. It still depends on you whether or not you want to change your fate. The people of the Han family cannot solely depend on the sky or earth. It all depends on you. If you do not want to die and still have things you wish to do, use your own power to get up. Walk back and fight for your life. Go and fight for what is left for you to do in this world. The blood from Han Sen's body bled into the cloth and continued to gush. His blood had almost run out by this point. Han Sen's mind was strangely clear. It was just his body that was not listening to him. He felt as if his mind had left his body. It was unknown why Han Sen's mind had become so clear. The quiet feelings were amazing. It was hard to describe. Is this the quietness Han Yufei described? Han Sen enjoyed that stillness. A power was burning inside him. The white flame burst out from all of his cells. The flag burned in the white light. It was like a torch burning it. I knew it. I knew it. This is not the end. Han Jinji's eyes looked bright. His whole body was shaking. Catcha! The pillars of the Geno Hall were broken. The door was broken too. One was able to see the door had flames waving. All the race lanterns were becoming bright and dark like they were going to be put out by a raging storm. When the Geno Hall fell, all the god temples were shaken away by the god light. It seemed as if the god temples and universe were dead. Aside from hopeless cries, there were no other sounds. Even the sky full of god spirits went silent. There were only the sounds of breaking. Such a disaster. I wonder how many creatures in the universe can survive all this. Sky Palace leader's face was cold like ice. There were even all sorts of disasters in Sky Palace. The White Jade Jing Tower and Jade City were revealed. A holy air came out from there. The holy air of the White Jade Jing was headed for Sky Palace. It made the people of Sky Palace cry. If there had been no elites and the support of the holy gourd vine, Sky Palace would have been broken by the holy air. Outer Sky was not faring any better. The ground cracked. Loads of holy air pillars came out like volcanic eruptions, making the ground leak. Xenogeniacs were running around like mad. All law and order was broken. Sky Palace and Outer Sky were like that too. Other xenogenic spaces and normal planets were like that as well. The universe is going to end. A hopeless fear was in every creature's heart. No one knew if they would survive this disaster. Wah, wah. In a stream, a Kate baby was floating. There was a sad crying sound. In the flood's roaring, it sounded quiet. In a volcanic eruption, many cities and villages were destroyed. Some planets were even hit by asteroids and blew up. Open it for me. Qin Xiu's eyes looked very passionate. With blood flame suppression, he crushed the Geno Hall's door. Shattered rocks were strewn everywhere. God's body was crushed. He slipped into the Geno Hall. He stopped before the 10,000 lanterns. Behind him, many of the race lanterns were out. When each race lantern was put out, one of the high races was heavily damaged. It made the races that were already suffering disasters fare even worse. God looked at Qin Xiu and said, "One person is making 1 billion races extinct. Is this really worth it?" Qin Xiu coldly said, "When I was in my most hopeless time, There was only one person next to me. To me, this world only consists of this one person. There are billions of creatures, but they mean nothing to me. I do not need to care about them. After that, Qin Xiu kept pushing forward to suppress the Geno Hall. Each step Qin Xiu took resulted in God taking one step back. He was going to strike the 10,000 race lanterns behind him. All the races knew that if the race lanterns were snuffed out, the Geno Hall would be done for. But no one was able to stop Qin Xiu. Even the strongest god could not prohibit Qin Xiu's march on the Geno Hall. Qin Xiu wanted to walk forward even more. He wanted to destroy the Geno Hall, but he suddenly stopped. His gaze was frozen. He turned around and looked into space. The hearts of the many hopeless races jumped. They did not know what happened. Why would Qin Xiu stop walking? It made them have a slight glimmer of hope. At this time, what in the universe could make Qin Xiu care? Many elites were feeling both confused and nervous. Most of the high races were already there. Under the suppression of Qin Xiu, even a true god elite had dropped out of deified class. No creatures were able to combat Qin Xiu. They were hoping and praying for a miracle to strike, but they knew the chance of a miracle was far too small. They still looked in the direction Qin Xiu was looking. They were hoping for something, but they did not spy any strong presence from that direction. Qin Xiu looked in that direction and said to himself, "What is going on? Is this just my imagination? Why do I feel restless?" He was feeling a strong sense of nervousness. Suddenly, the elites saw a white shadow slowly appear from that direction. It was not fast or have a powerful presence. It was like a morning sun rising into the sky. It walked into the Geno Hall's area. Sky Palace leader's eyes were the strongest. He saw the white shadow clearly, so he screamed aloud, "It's Han Sen. He is still alive." Many elites saw it clearly thereafter. It was Han Sen who had walked into the Geno Hall area. Han Sen was different from how he had been before. His body did not have the red fire. His body had a white color and was half-transparent. He did not look like a creature from the universe. He looked like a god spirit. Qin Xiu saw Han Sen step forward. His expression immediately changed. He stared at Han Sen as if he had seen something unbelievable. Impossible. The testing of super genes was not successful. How could a power like this exist? It cannot be the perfect super gene. It should have flaws like Warner does. Qin Xiu was talking to himself. Han Sen stopped a short distance away. His super god spirit mode was still affected by Warner's proximity. Han Sen looked at Qin Xiu and said, "Qin Xiu, leave Little Flower's body. This is your last chance." Qin Xiu coldly said, "I clearly underestimated you if your genes were able to evolve to this level. Even if you are so close to the super gene, you are still useless. Failure is failure. In front of Warner, who is even closer to super gene, your power will be suppressed." "Really?" Han Sen coldly asked. The story of genes was running in his body. When the story of genes ran, Han Sen's body was in xenogenic mode. Xenogenic mode and super god spirit mode were activated on Han Sen's body. It made his presence appear a bit strange. Dollar. Han Sen is dollar. All the creatures of the universe were suddenly frozen. They thought it was weird for Han Sen to be using super god spirit body. Now, he had a xenogenic battle body. It was clear to them now. Anyone was able to tell that Han Sen and Dollar were the same person. "Han Sen and Dollar are the same person," Isha said. She looked very conflicted. She could not believe it. Her eyes opened wide. She thought about the past and looked even more complicated. Her face turned green, and her face turned white and red. She did not know how to think or feel. On Empty Mountain, the green-haired growler's mouth opened wide. He did not close it. Now, he understood why Golden Growler gave Dollar first place and adhered to what he told it. Oh my God. Godfather Han and Dollar are the same person. This is unbelievable. At the end of the world, many creatures were frozen. They could not believe their eyes. This guy, he has finally exposed himself. Wang Yuheng shrugged with his shoulders. He knew this would happen. The people in Space Garden were not so surprised. Han Sen never told them anything, but most of them had figured it out. Han Sen's body moved. His movement was not visible, but he was already coming before Qin Xiu. He grabbed Qin Xiu's head and pushed downward. Pang! Qin Xiu's head was pushed onto the stone floor by Han Sen's hands. His head hit the Geno Hall, making the very heavy god stone floor fracture. Qin Xiu's whole head was inside the undying, hot stones that were broken. Qin Xiu's eyes opened wide. His pupils looked as if they had lost their focus. He looked to be in total disbelief. Water, who was in his hands, flew away and fell across the floor. Han Sen's hands were pressed upon Qin Xiu's forehead, and he continued to push him. Qin Xiu was unable to raise his head. His body had bloody flames wildly dancing. His hands gripped the ground to get up, but Han Sen was still pushing him. He was unable to get up. His eyes looked to be in disbelief at what was happening. He said to Han Sen, "Impossible. How can water not affect you?" "You discovered the story of genes," Han Sen coldly said. "Didn't you know that it has forever power? It cannot be affected by any power." The story of genes' power was waving through his cells. In the past, Han Sen was unable to make the story of genes' power be the best it could be. After he understood what it meant to become absolutely still, he understood what forever really meant. It was enough to control the body for real. Not even water could affect him now. No. Impossible. The story of genes cannot work. You must have the super gene to practice the story of genes. If you have super gene, then you do not have to practice the story of genes. This is a cycle that cannot work. It is impossible for it to work. After Qin Xiu spoke, the bloody fire madly exploded. He was going to send Han Sen flying. He only managed to raise his head 1 inch before Han Sen's hand pressed him down again. He was squashed against the rocks deeper than last time. His entire upper body was being pressed. Scary, bloody fire whipped around Han Sen's body, but it was unable to bring him a speck of harm. The reversed blood power that could downgrade a god spirit did not affect Han Sen. "Qin Xiu, it is time for you to pay the price." Han Sen pressed on Qin Xiu's body. His eyes flickered with a strange light. Qin Xiu's bloody fires were raging. He was like a volcano erupting. Although he could not get up, he laughed and said, "I did not expect a Geno art that could not be successful like the story of genes was actually made successful by you. So what? Can you kill me? If I die, Little Flower dies with me. You cannot kill me." "Really?" Han Sen's face did not change. The light in his eyes started to look weird. The Dongxian Sutra's power was quietly floating through Han Sen's body. In Han Sen's eyes, the whole universe was split. It turned into the smallest substance that was completely primitive. Han Sen held Qin Xiu's forehead. His transparent hands were like nothing as they went straight into the helmet. It went through Little Flower's body. A blood-red shadow was pushed out from Little Flower's body by Han Sen's hands. He threw it on the floor. Little Flower's body flew away. The god stone floor was like a spider web cracking in all directions. It created a giant stone hole. A red shadow was in the center of hole. That red shadow's face was like Qin Xiu's statue. Little Flower's body fell on the floor. He woke up. He coughed and climbed up off the ground. He looked at Han Sen in shock. "Father." Han Sen was holding Qin Xiu as he asked, "Are you okay?" "I am fine," Little Flower said with a shake of his head. "I am glad you are okay," Han Sen said as he stared at Qin Xiu. "You should leave. Someone will collect you and take you to Space Garden. I still need to deal with this guy. Please be careful, Father." Little Flower knew staying would only hamper Han's senator after saying that. He flew away from the Geno Hall. Han Sen said, "Qin Xiu, you're right. We are the same. We will do anything for something that we care about. Therefore, you must die." The power in his hands suddenly increased. Super Spank power was going to turn Qin Xiu's spirit body into dust. Under the power of Super Spank, Qin Xiu's red spirit body kept turning into red dust as he faded. Qin Xiu's was still smiling. "Yes, we are the same. I understand you, and you understand me." After that, Qin Xiu's eyes turned. He looked at Wanner, who was lying down nearby. "I, Qin Xiu, have never asked anybody anything, but may I ask you one thing?" "Speak," Han Sen said. The power in his hands increased to crush Qin Xiu's body. His spirit body was rapidly breaking. "If I win, you do not have to do it," Qin Xiu said. "If I lose, please could you take care of Wanner? All this crime is my doing." Warner should not suffer from my sins since she never did anything wrong. She should not come to harm. Please take care of her. As long as she does not hurt anybody, for as long as I live, I will not allow any harm to come to her, Han Sen said. Thank you very much. Qin Shio's eyebrows raised. His body was changing. He looked weird as he went on to say, to me, this world is like hell, but this is Warner's world. She has family and friends here. She does not want to see this world destroyed. I do not want to watch her die. I really can't do it. Qin Shio closed his eyes. A weird sun arose in his red spirit body. Boom. When the power in Qin Shio's body was released, the cracks underneath his body spread. It created a giant space crack. This space crack was different from ordinary space cracks. This space crack had a gray presence. It was weird. It made Han Sen feel like he was in danger. In Qin Shio's presence, it was like a fish in water. The red fire was becoming stronger. Upon seeing this, God's expression changed. He looked at Han Sen and hurriedly said, hurry up and kill him. We cannot allow him to open the path of reverse. Han Sen realized how bad this was. Even though scary space power was consumed, the undying God's stone melted like snow. In that space, the scary presence grew stronger. It was like a demon presence from a demon land. Han Sen was familiar with this power. When he was fishing in Outer Sky Lake, he had felt a similar presence. It was the presence of the anti-material world. Qin Shio suddenly let out a weird laugh. Han Sen, come and enjoy the view of hell together. Qin Shio's hands suddenly grabbed Han Sen and pulled him into the space crack. Han Sen wanted to kill Qin Shio, but Qin Shio's spirit body was extraordinarily tough. Even by using Super Spank at max power, in a short time, he was unable to destroy Qin Shio's spirit body. Qin Shio pulled Han Sen into the crack in time and space. Warner, who was next to them, fell inside as well. The three of them kept falling through that weird crack in time and space. Han Sen noticed his super god spirit mode could not stop the weird power of that tunnel. His body was being dissolved. What shocked Han Sen was the fact Qin Shio did not seem to be affected by the power of the tunnel. He was not dissolving at all. Warner's golden power could not withstand the reverse tunnel's weird power. Her body was dissolving too, but at a rate that was faster than Han Sen. Of course, the story of genes you possess did not succeed. Otherwise, you would not be dissolving in the reverse tunnel's power. Qin Shio let Han Sen go and held on to Warner as he spoke. Han Sen was shocked. This was his last chance to beat him. Qin Shio was not affected by the reverse tunnel's power, but Han Sen was affected. If Qin Shio kept pushing him into the space tunnel, even if Han Sen could kill him, they would die together. Remember the promise you made to me, Qin Shio said as he stroked Warner's hair and kissed her cheek. You will take care of Warner. No matter what, ensure she lives happily. With that kiss, the red light of Qin Shio's body entered Warner. The red light enshrouded Warner and kept her inside it. Outside of her body, a red layer stopped the reverse tunnel's power from destroying her. Because of the great loss of power, Qin Shio's body grew dim. He appeared and disappeared. His body's holy light was dissolved by the reverse tunnel. His was becoming dimmer. He placed his hands forward and put Warner in front of Han. Senator Han Sen collected Warner. Qin Shio smiled at him, but that smile only made people feel sad. Go back. Go back to your world. Take Warner and live. Perhaps that would be best for her. What has been missed is missed. I cannot try to reclaim it. I, Qin Shio, cannot go against the sky. After that, Qin Shio's body possessed a red light. His whole body burned with fire. He turned into a red power. He wrapped up Han Sen and Warner and pushed back toward the reverse tunnel's entrance. As they got close to the reverse tunnel's entrance, Qin Shio's red fire grew weaker. He used all of his life to become as powerful as possible. When the red fire was extinguished, it would be the official end of Qin Shio's life. Seeing the entrance of the reverse tunnel, Qin Shio's red light was already gone. Han Sen used his own power to get out of there. When Han Sen was ready to go out, the Sea of Souls suddenly emitted the sounds of something crying. The very dead crystal armor automatically ran out of the Sea of Souls and wrapped up Han Sen's body. What shocked Han Sen more was that when the black crystal armor was around his body, it went against things. It pulled his body deeper into the reverse tunnel. What are you doing? Han Sen kept using his power like mad. He wanted to change his course and leave the reverse tunnel, but it was not working. The black crystal kept pulling him down deeper. No one answered him. The black crystal armor was silent. It just kept forcing Han Sen to sink deeper. The reverse tunnel's armor was unable to break the black crystal armor. Inside the reverse tunnel, a weird power surging through the black crystal armor. It kept going into Han Sen's body. It made his body exhibit weird changes. Han Sen was not sure if the changes were good or bad. With his power, he was not able to stop that power from changing his body. Wanner had the power Qin Xiu gave her for protection. She did not have changes like that. The reverse tunnel was like a bottomless abyss. While Han Sen and Wanner were sinking, everything seemed to empty. It was like their bodies were consumed by emptiness. The first year of the universe's dollar calendar. In this year, Human Alpha Dollar beat the world's attempted destroyer and saved the Geno universe and its countless denizens. To remember Dollar, who died with the destroyer, that year was named Dollar Year 1. The new calendar of the universe was started. Humans and spirits were now members of the Geno universe. Countless human elites and spirit elites were from Space Garden and Sacred. It enabled humans and spirits to become important figures in the universe. Wang Yuhang went into the laboratory and asked Xie Qing King, Brother King, how is your research going? Is there a way for us to access the anti-material world? No, the power of the anti-material world is too weird, Xie Qing King said. We tried to go through the anti-material world via Mirror Lake, but no substance was able to endure the anti-material world's power. Qin Xian arrived holding a record. For the past 2 years, we have tried every way we can to open the anti-material tunnel. Nothing we have tried has succeeded. The tests fail and fail. We have to find another way. The Geno Hall's God must know how to access the anti-material world, but he will not tell us, Wang Yuhang sadly said. It's fine, Qin Xian said with certainty. We know that Han Sen is not dead. If he made it through, it must be possible for us to make it through as well. Yes, we must find a way to go, Wang Yuhang said while waving his fists. We cannot let little San Mu own the anti-material world alone. Zero came from a tunnel, frowned, and asked, Have you seen Bauer? No, it seems like it has been a while since we last saw her, Xie Qing King said. Perhaps she took little 6 and little 9 to hunt with her. Wang Yuhang lifted his lips and said, Don't worry. Nothing will happen to her in Space Garden. If someone seeks to do something bad to her, whoever it is must be really dumb. At the same time, in a mountain in Space Garden that was inhabited by nobody, Bauer was standing atop a weird bronze item. She looked at the bronze item. The bronze item was Han Sen's 4-sheep cube. Next to Bauer was a fortune-telling old man who was holding a flag. The words, Counting all the destinies, were on the flag. It was just those 4 big words. Bauer blinked. She stared at the fortune-telling old man and asked, Can this thing really take me to my father? Of course. I swear to God and hope to die that I would not lie about this. The fortune-telling old man swore to God. Found it. I finally found it. So many people died. We finally found it. In a very dark underground cave, an underground river led to a waterfall. It had a very deep drop. A booming sound echoed to the very bottom of the water. If one looked closer, one would see that the underground river's water was red. Bloody dragons roaring. All in all, there were 9 of them. 8 people wearing rugged clothing stood next to the water. They stared into the water. All of them seemed to be extremely excited. As they stood there, their bodies shivered and shook. Mr. Yang, what is that thing in the water? A middle-aged man looked at an elderly fellow with white hair. His vocal cords were trembling as he asked the question. The elder, who was called Mr. Yang, looked around. He looked for a while and said, This is certainly the place where the blood dragon returned to its nest. It is a place where the pulse is loud and clear. There is no doubting it. There truly must be a top-class gene egg inside there. The only thing I do not know is if it truly is the gene egg King Qin buried, and the one that we are searching for. I have no idea, but you will have to figure that out for yourself, Mr. Meng. I have faith. This has to be the right place. This must be where King Qin buried the gene egg. The gene egg must be in the water. Hurry up, go in there and pick up the gene egg. Mr. Ming saw the red light under the waterfall's red basin, so hurried the others to go take a dunk and see precisely what it was. The people were a bit scared. With Mr. Ming's authority, they had no choice but to jump into the blood pool. They swam to the red light below the surface of the basin. Only Mr. Ming and Mr. Yang stood away and watched the pool. Not long later, the 6 people emerged from the water. Together, they exited the pool and brought forth the fabled item they had been in search of. It was a giant egg that was 3 feet big. When the egg-shaped item was brought out of the basin, the water's light disappeared. Only the egg remained glowing with a red light. The giant egg was like a bloody jade. It looked good. Seeing the weirdly pretty, big egg, everyone looked at it with greedy obsession. Mr. Ming was so excited that he started talking nonsense. This must be right. This is the gene egg. King Qin was born with bad blood. He was bullied when he was young. His sister Wanner had very special blood that provided immeasurable talent. To help her brother, Wanner gave King Qin her own blood. Then, they created the Qin kingdom. But Wanner lost her blood and became rubbish that could not practice. She got ill and died. If Wanner had not lost her blood, she would have never become sick. King Qin blamed himself for that. He was miserable. It drove him absolutely crazy. He tried everything to make Wanner come back to life. Everyone knew the Qin kingdom was searching for immortality, but people never knew that it was not for himself. He did this for his dead sister Wanner. King Qin found this legendary, top-class gene egg. He was hoping the gene power could make Wanner come back to life. But their people could not come back to life. Wanner was unable to be brought back to life. Without Wanner, the entire world seemed to be pointless to King Qin. He threw away the gene egg. My ancestors were royal guards for King Qin. They knew that King Qin wanted to revive Wanner here in this ancient, big god mountain. He knew that King Qin did not take the gene egg and never return to this place again. Our ancestors did not really know where it was exactly, though. After all, many generations have passed, and all those people died. I have finally found this gene egg. With this gene egg, the Ming family will become very famous. After finishing talking, Mr. Ming laughed. Arg! Before Mr. Ming could put an end to his cackling, someone in the team screamed horribly. Soon after, it was not just a single person letting out cries. Each of the 6 people that had collected the gene egg from the bloody basin was on the ground screaming and rolling in tremendous agony. Mr. Ming and Mr. Yang were in shock by what was happening. People were writhing across the ground. Their bodies were rolling really quickly. They kept going on until they melted into blood water. Mr. Save us. A few people reached out their hands. They were feeling extreme pain. They wanted to ask Mr. Ming for help. Before they finished, they died. Their bones started to rot and become liquid. Within the blink of an eye, the 6 of them had turned into 6 puddles of blood water. There was not a single tuft of hair spared from the dissolution of their bodies. Mr. Ming and Mr. Yang were shocked by this. They tested the river water and did not discover anything weird. For this to happen so suddenly, it really was quite weird. Mr. Ming was glad he had not touched the water in the pool. Mr. Yang, please help me take the gene egg back, Mr. Ming said to Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang's face froze. He had a wry smile. Mr. Ming, I am just a mister. I did not practice. Mr. Ming's eyes glistened as he said, Do not worry, Mr. Yang. They died because they touched the blood water. The gene egg by itself is fine. You do not need to worry. Mr. Yang thought, if it is fine, then why don't you carry it yourself? Although he thought that, Mr. Yang could not refuse. Under Mr. Ming's watch, he had no choice but to carefully walk toward the big red jade-like egg. Although the big egg was clean and had no blood water on it, Mr. Yang did not attempt to touch it. He took off his clothes and wrapped them around the big egg. He tied a knot and picked it up. He was going to carry the big egg. When Mr. Yang exerted strength, a catcha noise was heard. The jade-like big egg cracked. The crack was spreading across the egg shell. Mr. Yang and Mr. Ming were shocked. After a second, Mr. Ming was excited. God help the Ming family. I never expected the gene egg to hatch now. I wonder what creature this legendary gene egg holds inside it. Mr. Yang looked at the cracked gene egg and said, King Qin was the king of the Qin kingdom. It was so long ago. Everything about him was just a legend. If the legends are true, this gene egg can hatch us a very rare gene race. While they were talking, there was another catch-a noise. The big egg's crack was spreading. The red jade-like eggshell fell onto the floor in pieces. Mr. Yang and Mr. Ming looked at the broken eggshell with their eyes wide open. They were immediately frozen. A man who looked about 20 years old was inside the eggshell. He had black hair and crystal skin. He was curled up as if he had been sleeping. Humanoid, gene race. Mr. Ming was so excited that his voice trembled. One punch. Han Sen felt as if he had just enjoyed a nice sleep. He felt so good that he almost groaned. He opened his eyes. What he saw in front of him gave him a shock. He wasn't able to figure out what had happened to him in the space of a second. Han Sen only remembered the black crystal armor dragging him into a reverse tunnel. He had kept falling and falling until he lost consciousness. Han Sen thought he was done for. It seemed as if the black crystal armor was content to kill him, but that wasn't what happened. It was like he had just slept. When he woke up, Han Sen noticed he was naked and curled up in the remnants of a broken eggshell. Water was missing, and a middle-aged man was standing in front of him. He was staring at his body with a greedy look in his eyes. Han Sen's head was flashing with a few words, horny, gay, and glasses. Han Sen looked at the middle-aged man with his wriggling fingers who was approaching him in a rush. He was mumbling, "You are mine. You are mine. Go to hell, you pervert." Han Sen thought, but did not say anything. He swung a punch toward the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man saw Han Sen wave a punch. He did not notice his face looked even more excited as he said, "Humanoid gene race. A very rare humanoid gene race. I wonder what element it is." The legends claim King Qin's gene egg was a time and space element. If this is a time and space humanoid gene race, after growing him, he can take a god temple and create his own kingdom. This would be possible. Be careful, Mr. Ming. Something is wrong here. Mr. Yang, who was nearby, looked weird as he tried to caution the other man. Do not worry. Do you think I cannot claim a humanoid gene race that was freshly born? Mr. Ming did not care for Mr. Yang's words of caution. He felt no power from Han Sen's punch. He had just been born, so the gene race could not do anything to him. Mr. Ming thought, no matter what, let's just claim him first. We can then teach him. Humanoid gene race people are very precious. We cannot allow this news to leak. I cannot keep Mr. Yang. He suddenly pushed out some power and reached out his hand to block Han Sen's punch. Mr. Ming's body expanded. He had weird features. His head had cow horns, and his body had black hair like steel. His body was becoming very strong. Some very powerful presence emerged from him. When his hand touched Han Sen's fist, Mr. Ming's face suddenly changed. He did not have a chance to fight back. Mr. Ming's hand was perforated by the fist. The fist proceeded to strike his chest and blast his body away. He hit a stone wall, exploded, and became a smear of blood across the wall. Mr. Yang's mouth opened wide. He was frozen upon seeing Mr. Ming become a blood stain. He could not believe it. He knew he had sensed something wrong, but he did not suspect something as awry as this would happen. It did not matter how high the level of a gene race was. It would not be as strong as this upon their birth. Although high-class gene race babies were stronger, they were not strong enough to turn Mr. Ming's body into a smear with one punch. Mr. Ming was an elite who was at a very high level in ancient God City. Even if he had not used a gene race, with his blood's power, he would have been better than most humans. A gene race that was just born would not be so easily killed by one measly punch. Mr. Yang was certain that if he told others this story, no one would believe him. How could he be so weak? Han Sen looked at his fists with surprise. Han Sen had not meant to murder someone. He thought that the middle-aged man looked quite strong, but he was so weak and could not endure one small punch. In fact, that was a very small punch for Han Senator. When Han Sen punched, he cast a Geno Art. He wanted to use the Geno Art's power to trap the man so he could obtain information to figure out what was going on. Who would have known that once he used a Geno Art, he would feel some scary pressure land on him? It forced him to suppress his power. He erased the Geno Art's power and weakened the punch considerably. It was like punching water. The resistance was very extreme. Yet, a punch like that still blew up the middle-aged man that looked strong. Han Sen was not afraid of murdering people, but he was afraid of murdering good people. Thus, he wanted to ask questions first. Unfortunately, things had already ended up this way. He felt kind of bad. He looked at Mr. Yang, who was nearby. Mr. Yang was feeling the willies. Earlier, Han Sen had killed Mr. Ming with a punch. The scary scene had his guts in turmoil. Now, Han Sen was calmly looking at him. It was scarier than being looked at by a demon king. Mr. Yang's legs went soft. He laid on the floor. His pants were wet. Han Sen frowned. He wanted to cast the Dongxian Sutra to look at the man. Right when he cast his Dongxian Sutra, he felt the scary pressure that suppressed the sky and ground land on him. He could hardly stand it. It was like a mountain crushing him. He could not use Geno arts. After Han Sen canceled the Geno art, the weird suppression that crushed the sky and ground was gone. Does that mean, have I come to another world? Han Sen was no stranger to that feeling. When he used blue blood power, his body was destroyed by the rules of the universe. But it was never that strong. Han Sen tried it a few more times and discovered that his guess was right. This world's power was repelling him, but not repelling him entirely. If he did not use a Geno art or use a power that was too much, the world would not repel his body. He felt nothing when he was not doing anything. Now I understand. This should be the world Qin Shui was born in. My body has some of Qin Shui's genes, so I am not being repelled. In this world, the Geno arts of the universe are repelled. My situation is like Qin Shui going to the universe. Han Sen quickly learned what was going on. He had been afraid that the world Qin Shui came from had many powerful creatures, so this discovery made him happy. It did not look like that was the case. At least, the two men in front of him were very weak. They could not stand a chance. If Qin Shui was able to enter the universe, I should be able to get back there. The most important thing is to find out what is going on in this world. Perhaps then I can find something out about Qin Shui. Han Sen looked at Mr. Yang, who was shaking on the ground. Ancient Big God Mountain was an old mountain. Although the name sounded like Ancient God City, it was not an Ancient Big God Mountain. It was somewhere quiet near the mountain. Han Sen dressed in black clothing and followed Mr. Yang to Ancient God City. He curiously looked at everything in Ancient God City. Everything in Ancient God City was new to Han Senator. It was a very modern city. Actually, instead of being a city, it was more like an old fortress that had been modernized. The city had cars and aircraft, and there were many of them. There was something Han Sen did not understand. For such a developed city, it was still in an empirical era. Ancient God City belonged to the Qin Kingdom. The lowest form of measurement in the Qin Kingdom was a city. There were no separations between states. Every city belonged to the Big Qin Kingdom, and every planet only had one city. The weird thing was that aside from this advanced technology, every human had all kinds of pets exist near them. According to what Mr. Yang said, these pets were called gene races. They were creatures that came out from gene eggs. Han Sen had also come out from a gene egg. He was at a high level for just being born. Han Sen looked around. He saw some tigers, lions, elephants, and creatures like that. He saw those gene races. One person even had a big green mantis. Han Sen was not able to use his Dongxian aura to scan the gene races and learn a bit more about what they were. He could not tell much about their appearances. Ahead is the God Temple of Ancient God City. Mr. Yang pointed forward and smiled as he spoke. Han Sen looked at where Mr. Yang was pointing to. He squinted his eyes and noted that the God Temple was in the center of Ancient God City. It was built from purple stone and looked very old. The shape of the temple was weird. The temples connected. From afar, it looked like a giant purple flower. On top of the temple's door was a carving that said, Evil Lotus God Temple. That name and look of the city was something Han Sen was very familiar with. It made him think, aside from the God flag, this place is Evil Lotus God's God Temple. Han Sen wanted to walk inside and take a look. He wanted to see if any statues depicted Evil Lotus God, but Mr. Yang pulled him away with a nervous look. He said, Mister, you cannot do this. The God temples are the base of a city. They are very important for a city. The city leader puts heavy guards there. Ordinary people cannot enter. It is only open to the public on Blood Pulse Open Day. Only people of suitable age can enter, and seek a blessing inside the god temple to open their god blood. I see. When is Blood Pulse Open Day? Han Sen was not in a rush to break through. Han Sen still had his power, but the universe suppressed him. He did not have his full power to fight. According to what Mr. Young told him, this world, which was called a Geno Universe 2, had 7 universe kingdoms. The Big Qin Kingdom was one such place, and Big Qin Kingdom's creator was called Qin Shou. That had happened many years ago. Now, Big Qin Kingdom's king was the ancestor of Qin Shou. If that Qin Shou was the Qin Shou Han Sen used to know, in that era of Qin Shou, he had not ruled the world either. That meant the other 6 universe kingdoms were not any weaker than the Qin Kingdom. They were probably no worse than Qin Shou. Han Sen was a guest, but he was suppressed by this world. In this world, the Geno Hall probably existed. Perhaps the Geno Hall had picked on Qin Shou. Since Han Sen was an outsider, it might end up picking on him as well. Han Sen planned to figure out what was going on in that Geno universe. He would then decide what to do next. He did not want to maintain a high profile. The legend of Qin Shou and Qin Wanner was something Han Sen heard about from Mr. Yang. He knew for sure Qin Shou was the creator of the Big Qin Kingdom. If this is the anti-material world, what does it have to do with the other Geno universe? Why did the Black Crystal want me to be brought here? Why does this place also have god temples? Han Sen just wanted to go to Evil Lotus God Temple and mosey around. He wanted to check out the Evil Lotus God Mr. Yang had described to him and see if it was the Evil Lotus God he used to know. Mr. Ancient God City opens every 3 months, which are counted by the days. Blood Pulse Open Day is in 2 days. At that time, you can go and have a look with other people. Mr. Yang spoke with a small amount of hesitation. Still, he looked very determined. He went on to lick Han Sen's boots and say, "My house is in Ancient God City. If you are not against the prospect, why don't you come over and stay at my house for 2 days? We can come back the day after tomorrow." "Why not?"
Han Sen nodded.
Han Sen was not an unreasonable man. He was neither a robber nor a thief. If it was not necessary, he did not want to use force. Waiting 2 days was not a big deal. He did not need to force his way into the God Temple. They reached Mr. Yang's house. Mr. Yang asked Han Sen to sit down in the living room. He brought out tea and said, "Wait for a second, mister. I am going to the yard to clear a place out for you to live." Han Sen looked at Mr. Yang coldly as he said, "Mr. Yang, you know what you are supposed to say and what you are not supposed to say." Mr. Yang felt a chill and seriously replied, "Do not worry, mister. I understand. You are just a mister, a man from out of town." After Mr. Yang left, Han Sen sat in the living room and drank tea. In this world, Han Sen felt that his body was suppressed. Everything else seemed fairly similar to the Geno universe he used to know. Even the tea tasted similar. Han Sen was leaning against the door of the living room. He was drinking tea and looking at the drawings on the wall. Geno races were depicted in the drawings. Han Sen was surprised by the fact that one of the gene races in the drawings looked quite familiar. It looked like Empty Dragon King. Han Sen was looking at the drawing when a female's voice suddenly sounded from beyond the door. "Are you Mr. Yang?" Han Sen looked over to where the voice came from. A woman standing just outside the door. She was clad in green clothing. She looked very pretty. She looked like someone in a drawing. She seemed to be around 20. "Why are you looking for Mr. Yang?" Han Sen casually asked. He also wondered if this was Mr. Yang's house because of the green-clothed woman's ability to enter and why she did not seem to recognize him. "I did not expect Mr. Yang to be so young. My name is Peaceful. Mr. Chiu advised me to come here. I want him to take me to Ancient Big God Mountain and help me calculate the location of the God Pulse." The woman explained why she was there. She did not beat around the bush. Han Sen had heard about this from Mr. Yang. The Mr. was just a job title. It was not his name. Mr. Yang must have been hired by Mr. Meng to find the location of the God Pulse. All the gene eggs were born inside the God Pulses. God Pulses were hard to find. God Pulse gene eggs were hard to find, and Misters were the professionals that researched them. Han Sen wanted to explain he was not Mr. Yang, but Mr. Yang walked in, bowed to Han Sen, and said, "Mister, there is something wrong in the garden. You should go take a look." Han Sen looked at Mr. Yang. He looked natural as he talked to Peaceful. He said, "Lady Peaceful, please wait here. I am coming." Peaceful did not mind and said, "Sure, Mr. Yang." Han Sen followed Mr. Yang into the garden. He suddenly kneeled and said to Han Sen, "Please save me, mister." "What do you mean?" Han Sen guessed Mr. Yang saying this had something to do with Peaceful. Mr. Yang quickly said, "That Peaceful is the child of Dragon Song City's leader. I once heard Mr. Ming say Dragon Song City's leader is just like him. They were both looking for the Gene Egg King Qin left behind. She has looked for me because she has heard the news. She wants me to take them to find the blood dragon's return to Nest Place. But there are no more Gene eggs. If I take them there, they will kill us. Please help me and save my life. If you do not want to go, you can just reject Peaceful," Han Sen said. Mr. Yang shook his head. "Mister, you have no idea. Nobles have the right to kill commoners. My blood is not pure. I did not receive blood from a god spirit. I am just a commoner. I learned some geography to get by. My reputation is low. Nobles like Dragon Song City's leader, although they are not the leader of this place, they would only have to pay a minuscule price for the right to kill me. Ancient God City's leader would not dare argue with Dragon Song City's leader over the sake of a commoner. How can I reject it? I need you to save me. I am willing to be your slave and servant if you save my life." After that, Mr. Yang kowtowed on the floor again. Upon hearing him, Han Sen frowned. The Qin kingdom was quite developed, but the laws were still very primitive. It was far worse than the Alliance even. It was just like the universe. The 7 big kingdoms were human kingdoms. This Geno universe was totally controlled by human power. Even Qin Xiu was a pure human. That made Han Sen think about a lot of things. The anti-material world was a world based on humans, and the Geno universe did not have any humans. Until Qin Xiu entered the Geno universe and had the crystallizers combine with his genes, there were not any there. It was only after that was done did humans start appearing in the Geno sanctuaries. God spirits had a deep history with humans. They wanted to suppress humans. If it was because of Qin Xiu, that made no sense. Many races wanted to kill the gods of the Geno universe, but there were no other races that invoked the ire of the god spirits like humans did. The most important thing was that in the legends, Qin Wanner was dead. Qin Xiu used all kinds of ways to bring her back to life. Yet she was alive in the Geno universe. Therefore, it made little sense. The weird thing was that Han Yufei told Han Sen that Qin Wanner was a member of the witch race. She was not of the same race as Qin Xiu. That was making even less sense. There had to be an important crux to this issue that currently eluded Han's senator. Although Han Sen did have a few guesses, he could not figure things out just yet. He did not know if he was right or wrong. How am I supposed to save you? Han Sen thought that if he wanted to learn more about the world in a short time, having a local follow him would be much better. If things were not too hard, he did not mind helping him. Mr. Yang awkwardly said, "I moved from the other city. Not many people saw me. I don't think Peaceful and Dragon Song City's leader know what I look like. If you want to save me, just use my identity to reject them. If you do this, you will undoubtedly find yourself in hot water with them. You are smart. You can make me your scapegoat. But then what? Will you leave and hide?" Han Sen lifted his lips as he spoke. "Of course not. I know you have god powers," Mr. Ming said in fear. "You were able to kill Mr. Ming with one hit. The Dragon Song City's leader is a bit stronger than Mr. Ming, but he is not very strong. He cannot do anything to harm you. If you are willing to have me, I am willing to be your servant. I will forever follow you around." He was a very smart person. He sensed that Han Sen was not a murderer, which was why he was saying all of this. "I understand," Han Sen coldly said. "In that case, go and reject Peaceful. If she forces you, I will help you out." "Thank you, Mr." Mr. Yang was very happy. He bowed to express his gratitude. After arriving back in the living room, Mr. Yang bowed and shared his identity. "Are you Mr. Yang?" Peaceful nodded and looked at Han's senator. She did not say anything. She coldly said, "Mr. Yang, I am paying you a high price to go to ancient Big God Mountain and find the God Pulse. If that is fine, please come with me." Mr. Yang looked at Han Sen and answered, "I am sorry, Lady Peaceful. My master has to work. I cannot leave ancient God City." "Who is your master?" Peaceful asked. She looked at Han Sen and checked him out. She frowned. "This is my master." Just as Peaceful had guessed, Mr. Yang moved to introduce Han Sen. Peaceful looked at Han Sen and asked, "Can I borrow Mr. Yang for a bit?" She could not find a powerful, noble blood pulse in Han Sen, which was why she thought Han Sen might have been Mr. Yang. Now, Mr. Yang was saying Han Sen was his master. That meant he had to be a noble. The identity of a mister was not as high as a noble, but it was stronger than a commoner. To be able to make Mr. Yang find a master, he must have been a noble. Peaceful could not detect a noble presence within Han Senator. There were only two possibilities. One was that Han Sen was not a noble. The second was that Han Sen's blood pulse was greater than hers. He had hidden his powers, which was why she could not sense anything. "I am not sending him out," Han Sen coldly said. "If there is nothing else you want, you can get out of here." Peaceful knew Han Sen's attitude was not normal. He seemed very laid back, but he was also very intimidating. She thought Han Sen must have been a high-class noble. Therefore, she did not dare say anything more. Han Sen thought there might be trouble, but Peaceful did not say anything else. She just asked his name and readied herself to leave. "You must not be cocky," Mr. Yang cautiously said. "Peaceful just does not know who you are," so she left. "She will come back." Han Sen squinted his eyes and casually said, "That is fine." Just as Mr. Yang thought, after Peaceful returned home, she started to investigate Han Senator after she sent people from Ancient God City to investigate. There was nothing that could be learned about Han Senator. Peaceful thought that was very weird. Han Sen stayed in Mr. Yang's house for 2 days until it was Blood Pulse Open Day. Han Sen followed Mr. Yang to Evil Lotus God Temple. The doors to Evil Lotus God Temple were now open. Han Sen saw a god statue far away in the God Temple's God altar. It was the face of Evil Lotus God. It really is Evil Lotus God's God Temple. Why does this world have the Evil Lotus God's God Temple? What is the difference between the God Temples and their existence in both worlds? Han Sen thought. Mr. Yang had told him that each city in the universe's kingdoms had a God Temple, and the God Temples had existed first. The human cities were built around the God Temples. The God Temples of this world had incredible powers. They protected the human cities and gave humans impressive blood pulse powers. While Han Sen pondered things, he saw a commoner queuing ahead of him. Under the gaze of the soldiers, he was allowed entry into the temple. When he was in front of the Evil Lotus God's God statue, he kneeled on the floor and prayed to the God spirit. He looked very sincere while doing it. That commoner was just a teenage boy. He prayed and got up. He went in front of the statue, picked up a dagger from the table, and nicked his finger with the blade. He placed a drop of his blood before a purple stone stove. He nervously watched the purple stone stove. After a while, the stone stove had no changes. The young man was very hopeful at first. Over time, that hope was depleted. His body shivered and shook. His legs went so soft that he almost collapsed onto the floor. Impossible. No way, I don't have God's spirit blood. This must be a mistake. This must be a mistake. The young man sounded crazed. He then brought the dagger up and cut his hand multiple times. He left every drop of blood fall upon the stove. The blood went everywhere. The purple stone stove still displayed no reaction to the claret. The young man's brain did not seem to be clear. He cut his wrist and severed all the veins and arteries he could. It made the blood in his body erupt across the stove like a spring. "I will have God's spirit blood pulse. I must have." The young man's eyes turned red. His face was full of fear. He stared at the stone stove. The stove appeared to be a dead object. In the end, the young man bled dry and fell to the ground. He showed no more motion. The stove was just a stove. The young man could not hold it any longer. He fell to the ground. He dropped into a coma due to the blood loss. All the while, his blood continued to gush. Everyone had seen this happen, but no one seemed surprised. They were all numb to events like this. They cared little for the young man. The young man, who was in a coma, was taken away from the God Temple by the soldiers. They were as carefree as if they were moving a dead dog. They threw him in the corner on the floor. No one seemed to whether or he was dead or alive. The second person to enter the temple was a lady wearing many layers of clothing. She seemed afraid. Her body shook as she entered the God Temple, and her head was like a nomadic traveler glancing all around. She was different from the young man. A few family members supporting her entry were outside. They were outside the god temple waving at her. After a while, she mustered the courage to approach the altar. She was just like the young man in that she kneeled before the evil lotus god's god statue. She took out a needle, bit her finger, and poked it. She let a drop of blood fall upon the purple stove. After the lady let a drop of blood fall, it did not take long for the purple stone stove to glow with god light. The purple light arose from the stone stove. It was like a purple mist. It generated some purple lotus flower lights atop the stone stove. The lady saw the purple flower lotus light's shadow and was happy. She cried. Her parents and family members outside were delighted too. They kneeled and expressed major thanks to evil lotus god. The purple flower light left the stone stove and landed on the lady's forehead. It went in like spring water. A purple flower light symbol was on her forehead. It quickly disappeared. Congratulations. You have evil lotus god's blood pulse. A very cold-looking soldier suddenly smiled. He politely sent the lady out, unlike what had happened with the young man. Mr. Yang, the lady received the evil lotus blood pulse. Han Sen asked Mr. Yang, "What is the level of ancient god city?" Mr. Yang replied, "God temples have destroyed class, disaster class, annihilation class, and reboot class. There are 4 levels. The higher level the god temple is, the stronger the god spirit blood pulse they impart. Evil lotus god is a destroyed class god spirit. The god spirit scene is the lowest level. Evil lotus god shadow is a low-level god spirit blood pulse. Only by doing this can a person go on the path of the gene egg. They earn possibilities and chances. You need that to be regarded as a noble." After that, Mr. Yang sighed and said, "This does not seem to be difficult, but most humans cannot go through this stage. It is like heaven and hell." Han Sen nodded, but he looked at the lady. Although she had the evil lotus god's god spirit blood pulse, her body did not exhibit any changes. Her power did not increase. The god spirit blood pulse was like being given a key. It had nothing to do with human strength. The gene eggs and gene races determined a human strength. Han Sen saw an old man with gray hair walk into the temple. He was curious and asked, "Why are there old men that are now only taking the blood pulse open test?" Mr. Yang had a strange look as he said, "All of the god temples have different god powers. The people selected might be different in each. If someone did not get the approval of a god spirit in evil lotus god's god temple, they can go to another god temple and try again. The chance is still slim. Most god spirits have similar requirements. There is not much difference between them." Han Sen watched for a while. Aside from the lady earlier, a few other humans had entered. None of them earned the god spirit blood pulse. Back then, Qin Xiu did not seem to earn a god spirit blood pulse. Warner gave him the god spirit blood pulse. In this world, it seems that you cannot practice without a god spirit blood pulse. This sounds like a very sad thing. Han Sen had been watching. He did not understand what the connection between god spirit blood pulse and human practicing was. Mr. Yang saw Han Sen start to queue. He asked with much shock, "Mister, what are you doing?" "This is a rare chance," Han Sen said with a laugh. "I would like to give it a go." "You?" Mr. Yang wished to say something more, but he immediately pulled his words back. After queuing for a while, there was an exciting noise. A man was so happy that he screamed. His blood revealed 2 purple lotus flowers on the stove. "I want to see evil lotus god's god power and see what sort of reaction it has to my blood," Han Sen thought. In the plaza, Peaceful was watching all of this. She saw Han Sen queue and appeared surprised. She laughed and said, "I had no idea how to investigate him, but he has gone to the god temple to test. That just helped me." The chance for humans to gain a god spirit's blessing of blood pulse was not as low as Han Sen thought. There seemed to be a 1 in 5 success rate. Most humans only received a single purple lotus. 2 purple lotuses were far rare to receive, but one special young man was able to obtain 4 purple lotuses at once. It was almost Han Sen's turn. Mr. Yang couldn't help but ask, "Mister, are you really going for the test?" Han Sen looked at him and asked, "Is there a problem?" Mr. Yang looked to his left and right. He got closer to Han Sen and whispered at a volume only the 2 of them could hear, "Mister, The god spirits only give humans a god spirit blood pulse. Han Sen understood what Mr. Yang was trying to say. Mr. Yang thought Han Sen was a gene race. That was why he was worried. If a gene race puts their blood onto a stove, what would happen? Han Sen asked with a smile. I don't suppose anything special would happen, Mr. Yang said after thinking for a moment. In that case, it should be fine, Han Sen said to comfort him. Nothing will happen. At the very most, if there are no adverse effects, there is no need for you to worry. Mr. Yang thought that made sense, although he still felt a little nervous, especially given how weird of a history Han Sen had. If something happened, it would not play out well for him. They queued for a while longer. It was finally Han Sen's turn. Han Sen waltzed right into the god temple while Mr. Yang's heart pumped like mad. Peaceful was watching from afar. She paid close attention. She was eager to see the results of Han Sen's test. After Han Sen entered the god temple, he walked straight up to the stove. He wanted to prick some blood and drop it onto the stove for a go. The two soldiers hurried over to him and stopped him. Are you not going to kneel before the god spirit? When Han Sen heard them, he frowned. He had killed evil Lotus God before. Now, they were asking him to kneel before evil Lotus God statue. There was no chance of him doing that. Hurry up and kneel, the soldier impatiently said. Han Sen thought about it, but he ultimately decided to turn around. It was only for fun. Doing the test or not did not matter to him. Having him kneel in front of evil Lotus God was something he preferred not to do. Seeing Han Sen turn around, the soldiers that guarded evil Lotus God temple were surprised. They did not know what to do. When Han Sen was almost out of the god temple, a man showed up in front of him and stopped him on his way. Are you leaving so simply? I remember I have something more important to do, Han Sen said. I won't test today, so please excuse me. It is okay if you do not want to do the test, but you entered the god temple. You must at least kneel. Otherwise, it will be considered as you being blasphemous toward a god spirit. The man did not fall back. His words directed at Han Sen were cold. Now, the soldiers guarding the god temple reacted. They all came up to surround Han Sen. Mr. Yang quickly ran forward and said, Mr. Sherbua, this is a misunderstanding. My friend came from the mountain. He does not know the rules. If he has offended you, please, for my sake, let him go. He was not afraid of Han Sen getting hurt. He was afraid of Sherbua making Han Sen angry. It would be bad if Han Sen slapped Sherbua into pieces. That would have caused him major trouble. Sherbua was ancient God City's leader's son. If Sherbua was killed, the leader would not sit back and do nothing. Han Sen would also make the leader become a smear. If he did that, he would shock the entirety of the Qin Kingdom's people. From what Sherbua saw, no matter how high of a level Han Sen was, he was just a gene race. There was no way he could fight against Qin Kingdom's high-class people. He would have to suffer. If he is from the mountains, it makes sense, Sherbua said with a look that suggested he fully understood. He suddenly looked cold and said, I do not care if he is from the mountains. The sentence for committing blasphemy before a god spirit is death. If he kneels now, I can spare his life. But he will still have to suffer. Before Sherbua finished, Han Sen interrupted by saying, I am not kneeling today, no matter what you try. It is okay if you don't. Sherbua coldly laughed. He pointed his finger at the sky. In the next second, there was a big booming noise. A giant, black-shelled creature landed in front of Sherbua. It shook the plaza 3 times. Han Sen looked at the shell creature. It looked like a beetle. The black shell was glowing. The wings were upside down. It looked as if it was ready to munch on someone. If you are willing to become my overbearing bug's food, then you do not have to die for your blasphemous behavior, Sherbua said with a laugh. His face looked very cocky. That is Mr. Sherbua's overbearing bug. I have heard it is a king-class gene race. It has incredible powers and defense. If I had such a powerful gene race, I would be happy and content for the rest of my life. The people in the plaza looked at the overbearing bug with envy. They did not feel sorry for Han Sen. From what they had seen, Han Sen came from the mountains. Someone from the mountains was being blasphemous to a god spirit and had even offended a noble like Sherbua. That was practically asking for a death wish. Mr. Yang was frantic, but there was nothing he could do. He could only just feel hurried and worried. Sherbua looked at Han Sen very cockily. Are you going to kneel now and let me break your legs? Or do you want to be food for my overbearing bug? I just want to leave, Han Sen casually replied. He walked past the overbearing bug, ready to leave the temple. How dare you? Sherbua was angered. This was his first time being in charge of the ceremony. He did not want to kill anyone, but Han Sen was being insufferable. He did not care too much, so he commanded his overbearing bug. The overbearing bug squealed. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. It went straight for Han Sen. Sherbua crossed his arms. He looked at Han Sen coldly and prepared to watch him get torn apart by the overbearing bug. Peaceful frowned as she watched. She did not understand what Han Sen was trying to achieve. It seemed as if he was asking for trouble. In any kingdom, admiring a god spirit was the most basic ceremonial gesture one could perform. Han Sen went to a god temple and did not kneel before the god spirit. He was just asking for trouble, which was why Sherbua was mad. That is fine. I will see what his power is like. Peaceful thought. Seeing the overbearing bug about to eat him, Han Sen did not summon a gene race. He raised his fist and threw a punch at the overbearing bug's head. Peaceful was frozen. Sherbua looked as if he was watching a fool. He did not use a gene race or god spirit blood. He used pure power to fight a gene race like the overbearing bug. Everyone thought Han Sen was either stupid or crazy. When Han Sen's fist landed on the overbearing bug's head, everyone's mouths dropped to the ground.